Good morning. It's DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Welcome in on a Monday morning. It's a weird time of year. I mean, we still have some sports in the U.S. Obviously, baseball's going on and MLS, and we got Summer League, and we'll get to all of that stuff. But how many people woke up and watched the Wimbledon men's final and flicked over to the Scottish Open? And by 1 o'clock, the European final was kicking off. It's a big day for Spain with Carlos Alcaraz, and he wins Wimbledon, and Spain wins the Euros. And we had some stuff going on here. I think Jazz fans are pretty thrilled by what they saw from Cody Williams. And he's super young, and he's super skinny. But, you know, we don't require much to have hope, right? So show us some flashes, have a nice Summer League game, and that'll get a lot of Jazz fans going. Now, can he back it up with another one? We'll find out tonight, and I got another game Wednesday. So we got a little more in the Vegas Summer League here to watch. But it was a weird weekend. A lot of sports from overseas. All right, we're going to wrap up Big 12 football here. We've got some content for you early risers. Jakob Robinson sitting down for an interview here on the station. We were down there. All the shows were there. Had so much coverage. Really intrigued by what BYU is going to do. 5-7 in the Big 12. Basically, you know, they beat a couple of teams that weren't very good. And then they really struggled with the top of the league, and they had to play 7 of the top 8 teams in the league. How different will it be this year? They've been in the league. They know what to expect. They've got some depth. They've got more continuity on the roster. What does that all add up to? Here's Jakob Robinson looking ahead to the upcoming season.
It's great to finally catch up with you, man.
Yeah, it is. It's been a minute.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about coming into Vegas. You staying cool?
Yeah, I'm trying. It's hot, but I kind of like the heat. It's a little bit different than Utah, of course, but yeah, it's a lot hotter.
Well, they put you guys on the private jet. I expected them to hire people that sat there with fans to sit there and fan you guys off. I mean, I don't want my guys hot out here.
Yeah, that would have been nice. I have some sweat stains now, but
that would be nice. Take that to Brett and Kenny and say, hey, you know, Hans was mentioning to have people fan us would be kind of a nice thing. I'm sure that they'd like that suggestion.
Kalani could probably find somebody.
Yeah, Kalani gets somebody on that immediately.
Jacob, I would not have bet in the first 2 years of BYU coming to Big 12 Media Day that a corner would come and be a representative, because it's just not been a position of strength for BYU for an extremely long time. So you get to light that torch and hopefully carry it and pass it on to somebody else. But what's that like, knowing that this is not – it's not the history of BYU. That's not where the strength has been.
Yeah, I mean, it's just exciting to know that we're headed the right way in the corner room. Coach G's done a great job. Coach Hill, of course, him coming in has changed a lot for us. I think this new 2024 class that we just signed is going to keep us moving in the right direction. They're really athletic, really smart in football, know how to play, so yeah.
It's just strange because it's just, you've kind of always thought, like, well, we know that's going to be weakness. With all due respect, it's just like the linebackers are going to go to the NFL. Probably going to be at least one NFL player on the defensive line. It's just not been the strength of that unit yet, but that has to be the expectation, especially in this conference.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I'm with you, Ben. I've seen the exact same thing. And I go back to that 1996 team that I played on that we went out and won the Cotton Bowl. And it was the corners that year that made the difference. Omar Morgan was an absolute genius. Tim McTire, who was playing in the safety in the backfield, I know you know Tim, he was a genius. And that was one of the best defensive backfields I think BYU's had. And you know, Jakob, as well as Camden and others, had to pick up a lot of the slack where you guys were in your 4 and 5 deep in the safety position. I'm wondering how much pressure that put on you guys at the safety position.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just the same for us, I feel like.
No matter who was back there, because it was you were rotating some guys.
Yeah, it's just trusting them. I mean, like, we're all at practice learning the same scheme, learning the same stuff, so it's just nice to be able to trust them back there, even though it might be someone different. But yeah.
What's your favorite aspect of coverage? Like, what's your favorite route? What's your favorite part of being in that coverage?
Yeah, I think when they throw the ball up, that's my favorite thing, especially if I'm bailing in like a third or something and we both can see the ball. I trust myself that I can go up and get it, but no matter who it is. So
I'm trying to remember, how many interceptions did you have last year?
4.
You had 4.
Yeah.
You know, these guys, this backfield, we're top 10 in the country in interceptions. It was like you and Camden and
Eddie.
And one other, who else?
Eddie, Hecker.
And Hecker, you guys were all going back and forth for interception leading.
Yeah.
And all of you were kind of top numbers in the country. What was leading to those interceptions?
I think Coach Hill putting us in the right position. Also, Coach G, watching film with him and Coach Hill has helped us just understand the schemes, understand formations, when route concepts are coming. So I think that helps us a lot just to know when to jump things and when you have to play over the top. So,
what's your allowance on that? I mean, as far as weighing aggressiveness and aggression, because if you get burned, and it's a big play going the other direction. But if you make the play, obviously you change the game. So what's that conversation like? Is it just you make your read, or are they asking you to try and jump more routes?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us that they're really talking about more is just having good eyes. I mean, we'll get double moves a lot. I think, especially me, this offseason, I've been working on just having better eyes. So like when they say they run a hitch and go, when they run the hitch, just drive him with good eyes, and then you won't have to worry about the double move because he'll just run straight into you. So,
I just looked it up, man. 14 picks.
That's crazy.
And that's, we're talking about 14 picks, and there was, I want to say 6 guys rotated through safety, 7 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and if you go to Harper, who was out before the season even started, and then you roll through Malik Moore, and then you go through Wakely and the crew, it was like, I don't know, Slade, Wakely, you're at least 6 or 7 deep. Am I not right, Jacob?
Yeah.
And still these guys were pulling down picks. So an amazing part. I do remember a couple of games and got to talk to you in one post game about some of the slants that we're hitting. Those slants, every once in a while, would catch that corner position off guard a little bit. What was happening in that moment? And what do you do to protect, especially when you're walked up on a guy? What do you do to protect against those slant routes?
I think it's a lot about our leverage that we're playing. I mean, it's up to me to decide what leverage I'm going to play because I'm on the field. So looking at what how far outside the numbers he is, just depends on my leverage and if he's running slants. So,
well, we got your teammates hanging out here.
Yeah.
You guys want to step in? Are they okay here? Yeah. Connor, you want to throw on the headset? I want to ask you a little bit about Jacob Robinson here for just a minute. All right, Connor Pay, who is an institution in and of itself.
Oh, boy.
First of all, I don't know if you've seen social media, but you're getting the thumbs up for the nicest suit worn amongst all BYU players.
Oh, let's go.
I like it.
That's a surprise.
They're calling you the most well-dressed of the BYU crew. How you feeling about that?
Well, I wasn't expecting it, but it feels awesome. Least amount of effort, and I'm still – I guess people like it. So
Jacob's kind of glaring about it.
You're mad about it?
No, I would have voted for you.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I think it's just more that I have the Nike high tops that match the suit coat, all that stuff, and I didn't want to wear like just a straight matching suit coat and pants combo, so I just went tan pants with a sport coat.
Well, it looks sharp, man.
Thank you.
It looks sharp. Jacob, we'll let you go. Tyler, if we want to grab the headset, Jacob, thank you. And good luck to you this year. Really appreciate your time.
DJ PK, when we come back, BYU football coach Kalani Sitake looking ahead to the 2024 football season. That's on the way. DJ and PK, stay with us. Good morning. It's DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Coming up later this morning, Steve Cleveland's going to join us in the 8 a.m. hour. Jay Drew at 8:30. We'll talk some BYU football and get his thoughts on what happened at the Big 12 Media Days. The show is brought to you in part by Lumen Technologies. Your life moves fast. Quantum Fiber Internet is faster. Move up to tomorrow's speed today. Go to quantumfiber.com. That's quantumfiber.com. All right, Kalani Sitake sitting down with the guys in Vegas during the Big 12 Media Days. Here's BYU's football coach.
It's already been a long couple of days for you guys, but you're so nice to come down and hang out with us and give us a few minutes here. Thanks for being with us today, Coach.
I love it, man. Talk about BYU football. I'm good with it.
So as things start to kind of we came in with your quote from the press conference, which I think we can all. I got 7 kids. JJ's got 4.
I got 4.
So that metaphor of being like, "Hey, here's how it's going to go." Whatever in your head, how it was going to go, Coach.
Oh yeah.
And then to actually have the reality of having to live through it. It's a very different thing, and that's what you guys went through last year. I love that comparison. And going into this year, then. into child number 2, so to speak, what would you do differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things. It's just like, how much time do you have, But what I need to do is just that there needs to be change, and there needs to be, and a lot of things. We can't just do the same thing that we did last year and replicate it again this year and expect it to be any different. So the natural learning process, though, now that the guys have gone through it, I can sit there and say, hey, guys, this is how it is. When I was at Utah, this is what we had to deal with. Just get ready. That kind of like falls on deaf ears, because until they actually go through it, when they get now we can talk and they're like, oh, coach, yeah, it's exactly what you said. And when you hang your hat on being tough and being physical, well, everybody's tough and physical in this conference. So like that I think you've been able to say, well, this is who we are, but you can't just count on that as the overriding factor. There's a lot of other variables that go into it. My job as a head coach is look at the different variables. What can we change? What can we improve on? And then let's make sure we get it done. And so we've kind of gone through all those things. I'm still learning, but I know one thing in the learning process, that if this is how it was last year, this year needs to be different in this way, and that's what we've done. And that, but I think that naturally the players, the way they took into workouts and getting things done in January, way different now. Spring football is way more physical, not because I said it, because I want it to be. Naturally, that these guys know what's at stake now. They've been through it, and so as we go through the off season, the same thing. There's just more of a sense of urgency, and now it's excitement to get to the season. I mean, we're excited for fall camp to get here, and excited to hit and play football and get better and see what we got in game one.
Well, Coach, logically, you're going to look at your situation of coming into the Big 12, making the move up to Power 4 now. Logically, there's a transition. It's going to take time. You can't snap your fingers and make it work immediately. It takes time, as we saw with Utah, TCU, and others. How do you balance that with just your overall drive to win and to win big and to do things at a level that you really know you can possibly, but knowing that you have to be patient as well? How do you balance the patience with the drive to want to win now?
Well, I would be in a different feeling now if we just got overwhelmed by talent last year.
Right.
And if it was just like we don't belong on the same field. Now, the season didn't go the way we wanted to in the results, but there are moments that we're like, yeah, we definitely belong here. The question is, how can we get more consistent production from our team? That's my job. And so as we go through it, and you're right, it's like nobody wants to hear be patient in an impatient world. And trust me, if you think fans are impatient, I'm way more impatient than they are. You know what I mean? So we all want to get better, and we all want to get better fast. But you can't skip through the get better fast at what risk?
Right.
And so as we go through, there's some great learning moments that you have to go through. It's like the analogy of being a father for the first time. That was the best thing for me, because I remember having all these opinions about, when if I was at a P5, P4 level, or if I was a head coach, this is how I do it. And then
were there any books? Were there any like nursery books for going?
Is there self-help for coaches making that transition?
Big 12 transition for dummies.
But I talked.
Okay, this will be great.
Yeah. But I sat there and I watched Kyle Whittingham when we went through that transition.
Yeah.
I'm good friends and talked to Gary Patterson quite a bit when we went through that transition. Yeah. So you start to get all this information. I knew a lot more and seen with my own eyes how different it was. But it's like you still have to learn yourself. And as you go through, it's like, okay, there's some great moments that you can't skip this process. And now that we're here, I'm glad that we were able to address some things, some issues of concern, and some things that we can really improve on. But also, let's highlight some of the good things that we've done.
Yeah.
It's like we've been in a position where we've had some success. We've done well against competition, great competition, and some of that competition is playing in the playoffs. So we've seen it before. So let's keep building on that. But we definitely have to address the issues that need to improve on. And like how long is it going to take? Well, I hope it doesn't take very long. I hope it happens now. But that I understand. I'm in here for the long run. I'm not looking for the quick fix, although the quick fix does sound good. If there's a way that you can fix it quickly and then still learn all the awesome lessons, then let's do it.
Real quick follow-up. Do you feel like you have the support in the long run?
Yeah. I can tell you one thing. Having Jay Hill on my staff has been really helpful.
Yeah,
and he's been there before. A-Rod's done it before.
Yeah.
We went through that process together. So it's not like they're not brand new to it. We were all together when we were up on the hill doing that, So, and then you've seen guys that have coached at that level. So our staff has a bunch of guys that coach at that level and a high level. We have guys like Chad Kahaha that's around. We have guys like TJ Woods that's here. Coach O-line at Wisconsin and Oregon State of a lot of these tough places.
The best, yeah.
Yeah, so we have great staff members that help us get it along. I don't have to do it alone. I can do it with these guys. And then there's a huge investment in our off-season conditioning with the guys that we have in sports science and with our strength and conditioning staff. So that stuff, I believe we're heading the right direction. I feel really good about where we're at, but I also don't want to just keep talking about it. It's like I just want to get to the season. Because I think a lot of people are just like, oh, yeah, we've heard that before. Like, yeah, I just want to show it.
One of the You brought up TJ Woods, and we get to talk with Connor every week during the season. We do a weekly interview with him on the station, and I wish he was more honest. No, you get like the most straightforward.
He's probably more honest than you want him to be.
Yeah, I haven't heard all those, but I trust Connor, so it's okay.
You know what? And I think he's a perfect representative of you guys. Where it's just like, look, look. He told us so many times last year. I was embarrassed last night or 2 days ago. Sometimes and then when this transition happened, I chatted with him after the golf tournament a couple weeks ago, and he goes, we've just been absolutely, we've been going at it. Things have changed a little bit. We know what we need to do. We haven't been able to talk very much with TJ Woods and understand a little bit what he's doing, but what has changed on that O-line, not just him as a coach, but what is going to be different about the run game with BYU next year? That was such a huge question mark last year. Game to game, there was I think we got it. Happen? And it was I don't know why it didn't work. And so what's changed?
And then it worked so well against Oklahoma.
Right.
And places.
By the end of the year, some things started to turn around.
Well, the inconsistency, that's my fault as a head coach. I got to get it better. But I can tell you one thing, if we were able to get TJ Woods on here earlier, that would have been helpful.
Yeah.
But it also helps that we have really good players that are good young men. I mean, we give a lot of credit to the coaches, and trust me, I want to give a lot of credit to the coaches too. But we have a good group of young men. Connor himself, he's a seasoned vet now. Well, compared to when he was a freshman and sophomore, he's way different in all the good ways, right? So we need to lean on those guys and collaborate. I think sometimes coaches have a difficult time leaning on their players. TJ Woods isn't one of those guys, and a lot of our coaches on our staff definitely want to collaborate with the guys that are on the team and on the field. And I think when you have guys like Connor Pay, you should do that more often, and I'm glad that TJ's with us.
How do you feel, and how much confidence do you have in your quarterback room right now?
Yeah, I feel, well, I mean, I don't know how many coaches can say that they have 4 guys that have started Division I football games. So we're in a really good spot now. It's learning the system, learning our scheme, the vocabulary. But I think sometimes the ways to improve, when you're looking at it in a scheme-wise or as a coach in the strategy part, it's easy to say, we need to improve in this part, let's get this better. But sometimes taking out the eraser is more important than using the pencil. So the eraser was important for us to focus on what we're good at, simplify it, make it so we can play fast, and let's find ways to be efficient, and let's focus on execution. So that's going to be the key for us. And I'm glad that I have coaches that are kind of seeing it that way, and in terms of let's get these guys playing at a fast speed, and let's be good at what we can be good at rather than trying to run and trying to throw a bunch of ideas up against the wall.
Do you feel like you have somebody in that room that's going to be able to give you the consistency that you guys need to take the next step this year?
Oh yeah, and I feel like, and that's why we went and got the depth. Just like if we've seen years where things happen and injuries do happen, it's part of college football. Where if we need to go down that far, then we will do it. But the competition, the excitement, the energy for those guys, I see a really good group of quarterbacks. The guy that deserves a start is the guy that's going to earn it. And so as soon as we can get to that point, I would love to do that and figure out the depth chart, and then we'll have to compete again when that quarterback leaves. But the competition is never ending. It's always going to be a week-to-week type deal as well.
Last one here, Coach, for you. I know you got to walk over to TV, but Utah
stuff I'm really good at. I got a face for radio.
Listen,
no, it's not true.
Listen. JJ will bring the camera up like this.
Well,
so that,
he looks good on TV. You and I belong on radio. That's
exactly right. He'll get it up high so that you'll be like, oh.
That's the key.
Accentuate.
Make sure the camera's up here, Coach.
Get it up here. Get the duck lips on.
Get it high, it takes 10 pounds off.
All right.
What's the addition of I mean, I'm convinced that this Utah BYU rivalry became the premier rivalry of this conference. Is that the way you guys look at it? As soon as a program like Utah comes in and the history you guys have, do you look at it like it's the biggest rivalry in the conference now?
I'm just excited that it's back on. I mean, it just makes sense. And you talk to everyone in college football, it makes sense. And that's not just the BYU Utah circles, it's everybody outside. Yeah. They understand what's at stake here. They understand the passion behind both fan bases and the alumni that comes from both places that extends to the NFL and all that, and the alumni in the NFL. So this is a really good this is a good rivalry to be a part of. I mean, a great one, and I'm glad that it's going to be a consistent level. It made sense for us to be in the same conference and for us to play every year. I just don't know when that's going to be, but I like that it's going to be every year.
You're very modest because it is definitely the best rivalry in this conference.
And now for it to be at the Power 4 level, it's the intensity is going to be ratcheted up.
The other rivalries just kind of have to naturally form.
Sure.
But this is one that's been there for a long time, and it just goes into households. It's not just like a red versus blue type of thing. This is like there's a lot of stuff riding on it.
And November 9th is so many more eyeballs on that thing compared to Thanksgiving weekend when everybody's going to be spread so thin, being able to get those things in.
So I think maybe strategically that was a good move, and I've been impressed, and I like what the Big 12 leadership has done. Commissioner Yormark is amazing, and so let's just keep it rolling, man. I'm excited to be a part of it.
We're excited for the season. Can't wait, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
There's Kalani Sitake. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk some basketball. David Locke next. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. A reminder, your chance to win every week on The Zone. You can win big on Wednesdays. Win Ticket Wednesdays. You can win a pair of tickets to see Post Malone at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on September 8th. Listen to The Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win. All right, time now to hear from David Locke. He joined PK and I late in Friday's show. Take a look at Jazz rebuilding strategies. Where is this headed? What did he think of the Salt Lake City Summer League? Here is David Locke with PK and I on The Zone. David, good morning.
My goodness gracious, it must be another great week coming to an end because I get to talk to David James and Patrick Kinahan, and that makes me happy. And they've had their football dose with Big 12 Media Days, and they're feeling that they can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train, and they're in good moods, and it's awesome.
Yes, it is.
And I got a basketball junkie Jones filled for me this week. Then I'm going to go to Vegas to get more. So, yeah, we're good.
We were just debating that. Do you go to Vegas? And if you do you broadcast games? Do you go merely to see people, talk to people, and gather information? What is your plan?
So I never go to Vegas. I, abhor going to Vegas. And I'm going to Vegas. So, yeah, I'm going to just watch. I feel like we have enough players that are playing that matter that I want to go see 2 more games. And I'm going to try to see a bunch of people and talk to people around the league. In all honesty, we have a few less people coming through our town right now where our team stands than we did a few years back. So some of my people I've known for 25, 30 years in the league or that I'm close with, if I want to see them, I probably got to go to Vegas to see them.
Well, I think that if you're ever going to go to Vegas, this is the time because the number of players that could be on the roster is now. No, not the time of year. No. I meant from the basketball perspective.
Yeah, no, I just felt like, and I haven't gone in a long time, but I just did feel like the combination of the amount of players we have that might be playing that matter, interaction with people around the league, interaction with our own people. I thought there was a real value to building some more relationships being down there. And so,
how much are the tickets?
The team has been nice enough to take care of the tickets for me. I'm taking care of my own travel. I'm paying my own way down there though. Not cheap.
It's not?
Nope.
Well, fly Allegiant, man.
Drive it.
I could have. That might have been. I had. All those things sound great until you have very specific time windows you're trying to travel, right? Like I'm specifically trying to get down there for Monday night's game, and I'm trying to specifically get out after Wednesday's game. So
yeah, gotcha.
Curious the impression that players made on you during the Salt Lake Summer League, and we might as well start with Keontae, who scored a bunch of points, but lighting up a bunch of people in the Summer League who aren't going to be in the NBA may or may not be telling. What did you think?
So Philly's two guys aren't terrible, though. Like, and Scottie Pippen Jr. is not terrible. Like, those were actually about as high level of – he wasn't beating Frankie Ferrari, right? Like last year, Frankie Ferrari was, I think, playing for Memphis. Dowden and Council, and they put G.G. Jackson on him a little bit, and Scottie Pippen Jr. Those are all potential rotation players in the NBA. So I thought it was good. I thought he looked like the best player on the floor, and he should. Like, I thought that was really good, that he was clearly the best player out there. And that's what he should have looked like after the amount of time he had on the NBA floor last year and those experiences. And then I think he's learning how he's able to score. And, one thing that was obvious in the first kind of 45 games last year is he just shot from everywhere. At any moment, like he was just all over the court with his shots. And actually, if you think about great players, they're not. They have their spots on the floor. They get to their spots. They take certain shots. And you're beginning to see him figure out what those are. And one of the things I really liked late in game 3 was, he had kind of got into this, like, I'm going to drive, duck my shoulder into you, probably draw contact and a foul, or I'm going to throw in that, like, 7-foot banker or little floater. And then the rim actually opened up for him twice, and he went all the way to the rack, once right-handed, once left-handed. And that said to me that he was actually making decisions. He hadn't predetermined things. He was actually reading the floor and making a decision. That's a nice step. I thought Keontae was good. I thought that was encouraging. His ball's got to go in, right? Like, the biggest story on him coming up next year is going to be that, he was a 39% field goal percentage guy, 33% from the three, I think is what it turned out to be, or 34. That he's in a danger zone there. Like, the guys who have done that in their rookie years in the NBA was put into some really, unforgiving circumstances without guys around him. And so I think you can wait and see. But if we're 41 games into the season, he's shooting 39% again, we got a problem.
I'm interested to see which guys can play with each other as far as being in the rotation together in the backcourt, because you look at Collier and it looks like it might be something there. But then you also got Sexton, you got George, and Clarkson is still on the team. Who do you see is good for the other guy to be on the floor together? You see what I'm saying there?
Yeah, I do. And I'm actually really on this because last year, I think I said multiple times you can't play Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson together. And then the Jazz did. And it actually worked a little bit. So I think you have to have floor spacing, right? So you cannot have two non-shooters on the floor at the same time in the NBA. So if Walker's on the floor, everybody else has to shoot. And frankly, if John Collins is on the floor, everybody else has to shoot. John's a better shooter, but everyone's got to be able to shoot. So that's kind of my level right now. But otherwise, the way we're playing with handoffs and pin downs and a lot of pick and roll and drive and kick, like I'm beginning to think more people can play together than I previously thought. Like, if Sexton and Clarkson, I think, are like mirror images of each other, or, they're actually not. They're the exact same. Like, they play the same way. I actually think, if you've got an open floor and you got multiple drive and kick guys, then that's fine. So I'm a little bit more believing that guys can play together in almost any circumstance than I used to.
I thought Collier looked really comfortable out there, and I thought he got into the paint a lot. And PK immediately said, yeah, it's like an Andre Miller thing. How much of that did you see? How much of that do you buy? How much are you in wait-and-see mode?
Well, I really liked Isaiah Collier coming out of the draft because when I watched draft players in a draft that had some deficiencies, there were only like 4 or 5 guys who did something super elite. So Reed Shepherd shot it better than anyone else. Ryan Dunn out of Virginia got into people and defended better than anyone else. Collier's crossover shake was as good as anyone I've seen in the league. Like, that first step, that move was anybody in the draft. Like, it was right up there of the best. If you gave me, the list of the 5 or 10 best single skills I saw out of any player, it was up there. And so that did not surprise me at all. Now, what did surprise me was the 2 pull-up jump shots, because I didn't think I saw that at USC. He does not have a floater game yet. So everything is going to be to the rim and contact, and that's going to be a hard way to live in the NBA. The layup is a hard shot in our league because guys are really tall and really big. And so I think he'll have to figure that out of what, again, kind of the way I talked about Keontae making a decision. Keontae's making some decision about 9 feet out to figure out what he's going to do. Like Collier's going to have to learn how to make that decision. That's where I do think Collier's probably ready. He can probably play 12 or 14 minutes a night. G League might be really important for him to actually learn where to make decisions and how to make decisions. Maybe not if there aren't enough rim defenders to actually bother him and he just turns out he can go to the rim every time, then it won't be as useful. But if there is decision making, if the league's got enough rim defenders that he have to make that decision, I think that would be good for him. He's never had to make that decision before because he always can just beat somebody and then get to the rim. I thought his passing vision was great. There were 2 plays I loved out of him on the third night. One was a left side drive where he kicked it 1 pass removed. And what I mean by that is instead of making the obvious pass to the corner, he actually lifted it up so that the natural play would have been you go to the corner and the corner rotates to the guy up top and the defense is kind of ready for that. And he passed it 1 more removed, which is the not natural pass to make. It means the defense is now even for. The other one was he called Filipowski up for a pick, told him which side to set it on, drove with his left hand into the lane, flared it back to Filipowski for the 3, and it was really clear that he had that set up from the very second he had the ball in his hands, and he called for Filipowski, and that's what he wanted. And that showed me a great understanding of the game. So I thought there was a lot to like out of Isaiah Collier. I don't know if I'd said it with you guys, but I thought it was ironic. I had said when people had asked me about him in the draft, I was like, I really, really like him. It's hard to get the 3-point shots that hit the glass and no rim out of your mind when because he does this. Like he takes this 3 that he misses so badly that it literally hits the glass and no rim on the far side. And it sounded kind of funny when I said it, and then he promptly did it during summer league. So he does have. I think it's that he takes a set shot and his shooting window closes on him faster than he thinks, and then he's got to change the arc on the shot, and then it just goes wild.
Yeah, but isn't that better then? Because you don't want it clanging off the rim and you can get a long rebound and the other team can get out.
There you go. I love it. Yeah. You have always been the eternal optimist. I mean, you are Mr. Happy.
So it's going to come off, allow your defense to get set up. So I think the guy's just a smart player,
I'm with you. I mean, he did. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I'm watching him in college. I actually literally had this experience. I was watching his college tape. It's like the second game I was watching him. And I mean, I was just warming up and liking him more and more by the minute. And I think the first game I watched was a Cal game. I later on texted Mark Madsen about it. He was like, we could not stop him. We could not keep him out of the paint. And I was like, no, you really couldn't. Like, it was really awesome. It's an overtime game. And then I watched another one, and I was like, it might have been Colorado. I'm assuming it was against Colorado, though. I don't think he played one of those games. And I was like really warming up, and then all of a sudden he took this 3 and it hits the glass, no rim, misses by like 5 feet as though like a hurricane came through the building. And it was like it totally just zapped me. Like, oh no, it's not all perfect. Well, it's not all perfect. Like, he went 29th. Great, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. From that perspective, still the opportunity to make some moves here with trades that can happen, and we'll see what happens there. The top of the draft next year, how enticing is it not to win?
It's really enticing because these guys are good, but it's also a 14% chance. But that's better than a 9% chance, right? Like, I mean, the league's done seemingly a good job in that, like, you only have a 14% chance. Like, it's not that beneficial. And there's only 3 teams that get a 14% chance, and I think the next gets 12.5, and then 10, and then so forth and so on. The one thing is that there does seem to be like a tank brigade. Like there's a lot of tanking possibly, or rebuilding, or it just happens. Maybe it's happened to happen that the teams that are really, really good are so good that the Brooklyns, the Portlands, the Utahs. Charlotte just seems to be stuck in mud. Washington is clearly, Washington and Brooklyn are clearly Washington and Brooklyn are clearly like in the Cooper Flag game. Utah and Portland both feel like they're like a move away from the Cooper Flag game. Detroit, Charlotte, there's a third team here I'm forgetting on the Eastern Conference, are kind of added some pieces, but not quite enough, and so they're right in the Cooper Flag game. And No, then I think there's Atlanta. Is like Atlanta and Chicago. One of them is going to make the play in by accident.
Toronto.
Yeah, Toronto. And Toronto, I think, is kind of in that same group of like. I mean, they still have R.J. Barrett and they still have Emmanuel Quickly, but you do kind of wonder what they're doing. Yeah. So there's like 7, 8, 9 teams playing for 3 spots. That's a little tough.
Not playing.
Yeah, right.
Tanking.
I mean, I don't know what to call it, right? I mean, it's an interesting, like, okay, so let's say as our roster, let's just be totally honest about where we are. So we have our roster as it sits right now. And if we rolled out our, like, I mean, just got to ask yourself, like, what's really the value? If we played our roster all out right now, I think if San Antonio's better and Houston's better, then we're 12th in the West.
Well, they were 12th in the West last year. I mean, Houston's already better.
Yeah, well, San Antonio just going to jump us. Now we're 13th in the West.
What about Memphis if they get job back?
Memphis is going to jump us too. I already assumed Memphis. So
it's 14. It's the
I mean, even if we go after it, we're 14, right? Like, so then okay, well, if we play all of our best minutes and. And I do agree with Will Hardy. Like, if you don't play your best players, you're sending some really weird messaging. But we got a bunch of players that are, like, right on the edge. And so is it really more valuable to play John Collins minutes at center than Walker Kessler minutes at center? Is it really more valuable to play Jordan Clarkson minutes than Bryce Sensabaugh minutes? Is it really more valuable to play, right? Like, it's just, like, I don't know who the next play. Like, it just gets really complicated in what the right thing to do is in all these moments when –
well, maybe
you have, like, the upside of what you're shooting for seems really, really hard. Now, do you go trade for Brandon Ingram and then you've got 2 bona fide 20-point-a-game scorers? You're probably pretty good then. Like, I don't know how good, but probably pretty good.
I think those decisions need to be made by the front office, not by the coach. I get why it's a weird decision when Will's saying it because Will is speaking for himself. But if the decision's made in the offseason to go young, you can trade the veterans, and then it gets really clear what Will needs to do, and he doesn't have to send any weird messages if Clarkson and Collins have been moved to better teams.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Like, Will Hardy has to play the players that give you the best chance to win and the players that deserve it. Like, if you go to training camp last year, and this was Will's point at the time, like, there was not a lot of doubt of whether Kelly Olynyk and John Collins and everybody else was better than Taylor Hendricks during training camp. Like, it was not close. Taylor wasn't ready. You couldn't just roll out Taylor Hendricks because he was the 9th pick of the draft to start the year. Look at John Collins, Kelly Olynyk, and be like, yeah, sorry, guys. Like, you're done. You do that. You've lost your locker room. You're not doing anything you want, and you're not even getting – and young players aren't going to develop any because no one's engaged. So it is – you are correct. Like, the front office has to be really careful where they put their head coach.
Whatever they do, go all in. Is that the best way to go?
Yeah, I just think that sounds really good on our end. And then how you do that doesn't, in practicality, is not as, like, so let's say you're going all in tank.
Yeah.
Or all in development. We'll call it all in development.
Yeah.
So that means you're trading Jordan Clarkson and John Collins?
That's what it would mean to me. Let's assume that that's what's done. Let's assume those.
But, like, how?
Well, you pick up the phone.
Yeah,
but, like, don't you? I mean, I don't mean to be like a jerk here, but, like, we traded Kelly Olynyk, Simone Fontecchio, and Ochai Agbaji at last trade deadline, and we traded Mike Conley, Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley, and others at the previous tape. If we'd had an offer for Jordan Clarkson, don't you think we would have done it?
Not necessarily.
Well, you're saying a good offer, an acceptable offer. Maybe you need to lower your standard.
Oh, so we're just like, but you're also, you got to bring, well, I guess we definitely have to, and the teams are, trading's actually become more difficult because all this first apron, second apron stuff is actually making it more difficult. But okay, but you also got to bring back $12 million.
Yeah.
So what are you bringing back? Or you got to bring back $14 million in case of Jordan. John Collins, you got to bring back like 26. Like, what are you bringing back?
Somebody you can waive in a draft pick? But
So
they wanted with Jordan.
So you're sending
reportedly,
Jordan Clarkson to the Clippers for Russell Westbrook, who's actually not making enough money. But the concept, waiving Russell Westbrook a second time, so he'll be a 2-time Jazz man.
Yes.
And then you're taking a second-round draft pick.
Right. And I think they wanted a first-round draft pick, and they couldn't get it at the trade deadline. But for all the reasons you did, Jordan's not getting any younger, and the first and second apron aren't very forgiving. Now, maybe when the new TV deal kicks in, but that's a ways down the road, and Jordan's getting older, so are you going to get a first-round pick for him? I just don't know that window is going to be open.
Right. And so then the next question gets into, okay, well, wait a sec. What happens if we do the same thing we've been doing, which was we play the first 35, 40 games. Jordan's really good.
You draft 8th, 9th, or 10th. Yeah, you're going to draft 8th, 9th, or 10th because Jordan Clarkson's going to help win you some games that you wouldn't win if you didn't have him.
But Jordan plays well, and Milwaukee's a piece short. And Milwaukee gives up a future first to add Jordan's scoring because Chris Middleton's hurt, and they're trying to make a run and keep Giannis happy. And so you get a first for Jordan, and then it's worth it.
It's worth it on the other end if you get the players you're looking for or get the result you're looking for. Maybe it's not worth it individually on that particular deal.
Right, but it's just, on the other end, you're like, what are you doing it for? 14% compared to a 9% chance? Like, what's the delta?
Yeah,
right?
I think it's more than that. I mean, they're talking about this draft in particular is 5 potential stars deep, so it's more than that.
Right, but if you're in the bottom 3, you still have an over 50% chance of being out of the top 4.
Understood, man. If it was a guarantee, then you would do it, and there would be no questions about it.
Well, it used to be, and so you just did it. I just think it's just really difficult, complicated, and when we all sit here and say, well, you just got to go all in either way, like I'm just not sure that either of those Robert Frost roads are actually as available as we're making them sound.
Right, but what are the results the other way?
Well, shouldn't Portland be doing the same thing? Like, shouldn't Portland be trading DeAndre Ayton and Jeremy Grant right now?
They never should have traded for Ayton in the first place.
Right, but they can't. I mean, they're in a little bit of a similar circumstance, right? Like they shouldn't Washington move Kyle Kuzma by now?
Well, the only thing you say with Portland is that they were a 21-win team, and if the Jazz were a 21-win team, they would have had a better pick. Now, you still have to have the luck and the odds, but where the Jazz were, the odds of moving up weren't very good.
All right, so we might disagree on this one, and this one's not going to make me any friends, and probably not the most intelligent question I should ask, but we'll go with it anyway. Vegas line comes out tomorrow, I'll pretend. What do you think our over-under win total is with our roster constructed as it is right now?
25?
I was going to say 30. I was going to say 30.
Okay, then we don't need to trade anyone.
Unless they're impeding development of the younger guys.
Okay, well, that's right. But, like, if our win total is 25 to 30, we're in the bottom 3. We're there. We're in as good a position as we can be for Ace Bailey and Cooper Flagg. Like, we don't need to do anything else. We're all in.
Ready, break.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's 32.5 probably, but that's my kind of thought.
Coop and Mark at the forwards. I like it. May you have a long winter.
What do you think the odds are of going the other way and going to New Orleans and getting a second piece and saying, okay, they're going to make a run at 45 wins, maybe 50 wins?
I mean, it's an interesting, like, let's say New Orleans just decides we want off from Brandon Ingram, which I don't think they're going to do, but let's just say, right? And the package becomes John Collins, Jordan Clarkson, and a first.
Uh-huh.
Do you have to do it?
I like it. But I mean,
it increases your value of your roster a great deal, right?
Mm-hmm. And if you want, can you, depending on how, do you think there'd be value if you decided to move Ingram in a year or two?
Right. I mean, I've always been on this side of the issue. If I'm being fully transparent, I've been in on Zach LaVine. I've been in on any of these guys because I think they lead you to make your next trade better. Like it's hard to tell what big game hunting actually is right now. Like Mikal Bridges is not the biggest game in the world, and you're got 5 first-round draft picks and didn't want any players. So maybe it's just assets, and maybe trading players to get big game hunting isn't actually the way to do it anymore. But it does feel like if you had decided that Trae Young was someone you wanted, and you had somebody else, and you went and you had some roster players on it, it'd be easier for you to get Trae Young if you had some pieces of your puzzle.
David, we will stop right there for now.
I think
or not.
I think what's important here on this conversation, and we're trying to do it, and I thought we did it fairly well, is it's just like I keep hearing people say we have no plan. Like, no, there's clearly a plan, but it's not like you're not an isolated business in which you just get to execute everything you want to execute. You're in the midst of an ecosystem where other people have to play along, and there are rules and things of that nature which are making it so that it's not as easy to execute as you probably, would like it to be, right? Like, I mean, I think it's really interesting to look at the teams that we think are tanking and then look at the players on their rosters. Like, well, it doesn't make sense entirely that Detroit just signed Tobias Harris, and it doesn't make sense that Washington still has Kyle Kuzma. It doesn't make sense that Portland still has Jeremy Grant and DeAndre Ayton, and it might not make sense to the Jazz fans that they still have John Collins and Jordan Clarkson.
When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know.
News update.
This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NBA.
It's going to work just like any one of my teammates. Hold him accountable, and he should hold me accountable when I do things, not right. For me, I probably would hold him at a higher standard because I want him to be great. I want him to be as great as he can be.
Hold him accountable, PK. Bronny James, how is he going to do that? How's that possibly going to work?
LeBron's done something wrong? Wow. That's incredible to find out. I didn't know that.
First thing, make shots. How's that shooting slump coming along?
Oh, yeah, it's 15 years now. I got to stop with this, man.
I know.
I feel bad for the kid in a sense. Like he's under the spotlight.
Yeah, in a way, no second-round pick is ever under the spotlight.
He's doing the best he can. He's just not that good. Maybe down the line. It's just too much. Just back off. I mean, the Connect kid the other night looked really good. Their first-round pick out of Tennessee via Northern Colorado in a junior college. And I think he has an opportunity to really help that team because when you've got somebody like a LeBron who's going to draw so much attention and can, with the handles he has and his ability to get to the basket, shooters are going to be open. I remember when Korver was traded to Cleveland and they said, asked LeBron, well, what are you going to do? I'm going to pass him the ball. Yeah.
Pass him the ball, make open shots.
LeBron's basketball IQ is pretty doggone high. So if you got a player who can make shots, that's going to help you. So I thought that was a good pick. I would think it was around 16 in the middle there somewhere. And being able to have somebody who can score led the SEC in scoring, if I remember correctly. So I'd rather focus on that.
Make some shots.
Yeah, which is what he can do.
How about for a first-round pick on the Lakers, you get to be under the radar in a way you think you never would?
For now. I mean, I think once Bronny
goes
down with the South Bay
once
team.
Bronny goes to the G League,
yeah,
and the Lakers are in Game 20 and someone needs to make a shot, then he'll be in the spotlight.
Right.
Jazz in Vegas, they won Saturday. They beat Dallas 90-89. Cody Williams had 21. Jazz and the Kings tonight, 8 o'clock. Cody Williams, that's what you wanted to see, right? I know just getting started, but...
Oh, sure, yeah. Just start asserting yourself. Don't force it, but assert yourself in the right moments and flicking back and forth between baseball and that game on Saturday. It's a summer league game, but, he's still just 19 years old. He looks like such a baby. And to see him do that, that's a positive sign. You're looking for positive signs. You're not going to go nuts, but you'd rather have that than 2 for 9 or something.
The rest of the NBA news, the NBA Cup in-season tournament groups have been revealed. Imagine our excitement. Group B. Lakers, Suns, Spurs, and Thunder. Play begins November 12th.
In the big picture, it's nothing. In the moment, it's something.
Will this be the year that somebody wins it and doesn't fire their coach?
Yes.
Lakers won the first one. Lakers fired their coach. Denver Nuggets saw first-round draft pick Deron Holmes tear his Achilles in his summer league debut. He is out for the season.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, setbacks go. That's a brutal one right
He's
there.
He's a Phoenix kid, and they were looking for a big man to help him. And that sucks for the kid.
Jalen Brunson is the hero in New York. He's agreed to a 4-year, $156 million contract extension, $113 million less guaranteed than he's eligible to sign for, all to give the Knicks flexibility as they seek to build a true title contender. Unprecedented financial concession on Brunson's part.
That just means he's not going to be able to live in New York.
Ayo. $156 million, he can't pull it off?
You're going to get way out of the burbs, even past me in Jersey, and I was only like 30 miles away. It costs a lot to live there.
Knick fans loving Jalen Brunson. He definitely won the press conference with that one, even if it was just an announcement.
I mean, he's mentally tough.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag NFL.
Tell you what, you're having a lot more fun when you're not getting shipped off to different places like a piece of dirty laundry. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So when I got embraced in Tampa, it made a world of difference. And yes, it is my job, but I love it so much. So why not? I've always wore my emotions on my sleeves, and so let people embrace that. And that's why I'm so excited for having more years to come in Tampa, for people to just get to know me a little bit better, truly realize that that's not just a show on the field. That's who I am when it comes down to the football aspect, and I love it. I do anything for our team. And our locker room guys know that.
There's Baker Mayfield, Bucs quarterback. They love him in Tampa. They went 9-8. It wasn't a great year, but hey, make yourself beloved in the community. Go on the air and tell people how much you love it there. And after all, he bounced around. 9-8 was a step forward. It probably was a lot more fun than he had the last few years in the NFL.
Way to go, Bake.
Minnesota Vikings star wide receiver Justin Jefferson was arrested Friday near LAX on suspicion of driving under the influence. The California Highway Patrol releasing a report. The West LA officer found a white Rolls Royce blocking a lane of I-105 westbound to Sepulveda, and the driver, later identified as Addison, was asleep behind the wheel. The incident comes 5 days after Minnesota rookie Kyrie Jackson was killed in a car crash with alcohol involved in that.
You telling me it wasn't a Honda Civic?
It was not a Honda Civic. The white Rolls is not the Honda Civic. Former Ravens wide receiver Jacoby Jones, known for the Mile High Miracle as well as his starring role in the Ravens' 2012 Super Bowl run, passed away at the age of 40 in New Orleans. No cause of death announced with that. 40. Way young. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college football.
Braden had the same kind of offers. If you have enough evidence, you can prove it, but, smoking gun. He said guy from Kansas State called him, offered him $600,000 because they lost their quarterback. And if he got in the portal. And I'm not accusing Kansas State of anything. I'm just telling you what the kid told me. And so if they don't want their name thrown in it, I think they should probably get a handle on their people. But there's a lot of that going on in college football, and that's just the way things are right now.
That's Colorado State's Jay Norville putting names on something we've heard about. But
I'm not saying you suck, but you suck.
And if you don't want your name on it,
come on,
get a handle on your people.
Yes, you is.
I wouldn't mind a little more of that. There's supposed to be a lot of that going on. Let's just have people out there naming names.
So
Let's go.
Well, what's the big deal?
No, it's entertaining.
I mean, right, but what's
it
the
doesn't
big deal?
matter. It is happening, right?
Yeah.
Why is Jay mad? Because it is happening to other people.
Well, then go poach somebody else. Go down to the Big Sky. There's plenty of Big Sky players that can help you.
Former Northwestern offensive coordinator Mike Bajakian is suing the school for defamation and spreading false information for its actions during the hazing scandal that rocked the program last summer. He's currently an analyst for the Utes, And his lawsuit claims he lost the chance to have his contract renewed, could not land comparable employment, and suffered reputational damage. Oregon quarterback Dylan Gabriel, the new betting favorite to win the Heisman, passing Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers and Georgia quarterback Carson Beck. Change coming in July. A little unusual here, but there you go. Dylan Gabriel for the Heisman. Let it begin. SEC Media Days begin today in Dallas. 4 days, 16 teams. Now, you had to do 8 teams a day in a 2-day, 16-team media day. Could you have used an extra day or two to focus on some of these? Was there too much going on? No. Or was this getting strung out forever at 4 teams, 16 days? 4 teams per day, getting through the 16 teams over 4 days.
That seems very long. No, I thought that they could have tightened it up. I mean, we didn't start. They didn't start sending people till up on the podium till 11 a.m. Get going.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
A flare out to left field. Starting in is Verdugo. He has to go back. He has to go back, and he misjudged it. It is over his head, and the Orioles slide is going to end. Mullins is your hero. The Orioles walk it off 6-5.
Ramirez will field. Goes to third. Throws it into left field. Here comes Malloy. He'll score, and the Tigers walk it off for the second straight day.
Here's Geloff. He swings and he slams one to deep left center field on its way, and it is a grand slam. And there's the record tying home run, the 8th of the day for the Athletics going back to 1996, and the Athletics now lead it 18-3.
Yaz around second, digging for third, and standing at third on a wild throw. The throw goes out of play, and this ball game is over. A Little League home run to wrap it up.
Giants walk it off against the Twins 3-2. Mike Yastrzemski. They gave 2 errors on the play. I guess that would have at least been a tough catch out there in the outfield, diving for it and all that. But the throw to third was ridiculous. So the Little League homer, 2 errors on the play, and Yastrzemski scores the game winner. Giants beat the Twins 3-2. Also walking it off, Detroit beating the Dodgers. The Dodgers' woes continue. Tigers beat the Dodgers 4-3. If you were a Dodger fan, would you be more depressed by that? Or you were mentioning last week, 18 players on the DL and a couple more guys the injured list now, yes. And the injured list is their time. May is now 2 more months or another month on the injured list and back sometime in August.
Dustin May?
Yeah.
He's done for the year.
Well, he's done for the year. Then who got extended into August? Someone got extended into August. There were multiple pitchers with bad news for the Dodgers over the weekend.
I don't know. But, yeah, their starting rotation is shot. So, yeah, I mean, if they're healthy, they still got a 7-game lead.
Yep. The Yankees almost took the division lead playing the Orioles. They needed to win the last game there before the break, and they got 3 in the 9th and took the lead. And then they gave up 3 in the 9th. And they lose to the Orioles 6-5. Cedric Mullins, a 2-run double, walking it off for Baltimore.
They gave him a double on that?
They did.
That Verdugo looked like he was on skates. I thought the Utah hockey team was going to sign him.
Hey-o.
And they made 2 errors, shortstop and then left field. I thought that was an error. I know that he didn't touch the ball, but he badly misplayed it and then fell, tripped all over himself.
Also in there, you heard Oakland, 8 home runs. Of all the teams in the major leagues to pull it off, the A's, huh? Oakland, 8 homers, most in a game by a Major League Baseball team since 1999, and they crushed the Phillies 18-3.
That happens.
Former Oregon State star Travis Bazzana becomes the first second baseman to be selected number 1 overall in the MLB draft. Cleveland taking him. He had 28 homers in 60 games last year. That's a lot of power for anyone. It's a lot of power for second baseman.
He's a natural second baseman.
Bees beat the Sacramento River Cats 4-3 last night. Same 2 teams play tonight at 6:30. They do not play tonight at 6:30. Yak, they're off tonight. It's break time. All right, DJ and PK.
Right across the face of goal, and there it is! Spain grab a winner. It's Oyarzabal, who might just
Lo Celso, Lautaro Martinez, Lautaro Martinez!
Soccer. Spain wins the Euros, 4th time, most ever. And then in extra time, Argentina beats Colombia. Messi's ankle. No Messi. He had to leave late in the first half. His ankle's swollen and disgusting looking. And RSL goes to Portland and gets dominated by the Timbers. They get shut out. Timbers roll 3-0. First road loss since the season opener to Miami. And they're back on the road Wednesday night to play LAFC. The top 3 all lost. LA Galaxy lost. LAFC lost, so they're still tied for first. But some nights you don't have it, and they didn't have it. Gave up a goal in the 3rd minute and never got back in it.
I feel bad for you guys.
Thank you. DJ and PK.
#golf.
And he wins a good win, PK, but Robert McIntyre, the birdie putt on the final hole of the Scottish Open, he rolls that in. Adam Scott was already in the clubhouse. He needed the birdie to win.
Adam Scott was on the range.
He needed the birdie
in case he had to
play in the playoff.
Yeah.
Needed the par for the playoff, but he made the birdie putt. Rolled that thing in. Harry Hall holed out a 45-foot chip on the 3rd playoff hole to win a 5-man playoff at the ISCO Championship. And former BYU golfer Zach Blair was in the playoff, but he was knocked out on the first playoff hole. That is what is trending. It's brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. Coming up, the question of the day is next. And then at 8 o'clock, Steve Cleveland, former Cougar basketball coach. You're intrigued with the recruits keep coming in for BYU. This is 5 international guys. Half the team is brand new. It's awesome to have talent, and they apparently do. But how do you blend that into a team? We'll talk with Steve Cleveland about that at 8 o'clock. And Jay Drew, Cougar beat writer for the D News, joins us at 8:30. His impressions of Big 12 Media Day. That's with Jay at 8:30. The question of the day next, right here on The Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
The rivalry's back.
Yeah, man.
You know, and a lot of people have their opinions on that, for and against, listening right now. But it's inevitable. That game on November 9th is going to be bigger than it's ever been. No matter what BYU's situation is, no matter what Utah's situation is, because they're going to be playing in the Big 12, in a Power 4 conference, on a national stage. This rivalry's never had this kind of attention before. And I'm hoping, and I feel pretty confident that game's going to have a lot of meaning, one way or the other.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hot Takes with Toast brought to you by Siegfried and Jensen with 30 years of serving Utah. Question of the morning. The Utes think they can get into the football playoff and possibly win it all. What do you think? Cougar fans think a lot of things, PK. Patrick, just like they did in the Pac-12.
That's me, by the way.
That's Patrick Pearson. John Eastman, the best laid plans of mice and Utes often go awry. And Mike, they've gone 0-5 in the last 5 bowl games. They're a regular season darling, and then they can't get it done in the postseason. They are the Dallas Cowboys of the NCAA.
So you're going to worry about the Las Vegas Bowl?
Yes, clearly. Brian, I hope not. Donnie, those guys should take it one game at a time.
Oh, they will. They will. All they're talking about is Southern Utah right now.
David says their quarterback's going to go down by game 5, and they'll finish 9-3.
Not bad.
Didn't play at all last year, and they were 8-4 after 12 games.
You taking 9-3 BYU right now?
Yes. All serious BYU fans are saying yes.
9-3? Yeah. There's probably maybe 15 teams that would throw back 9-3.
Tops.
Yeah. That'd be pretty awesome if they went 9-3. And what, he was going to get injured in the 5th game? Is
yes.
That what it was?
So that gets you Oklahoma State. Gives you a chance. You got him.
Well, that just...
And then how far into game 5? Because that's Arizona.
Well, irregardless, that just sets yourself up for a great 25 season. Coach returns. They got an established quarterback.
Everybody's back.
Yeah. I mean, and nobody ever graduates up there. I don't know how they do it.
It's a miracle.
They always seem to got one more year. They find it somewhere, man. It's like finding a $20 bill in your winter coat come late fall. Man, I didn't know that was there.
Haven't worn this thing in 7 months. Why is there a 20 in the pocket?
And again, they got another year to go. It's just amazing. Keithy, I did a thing on Friday with the sports bash.
The ultimate sports bash.
Yeah.
How was that? Was that well attended? Are we going to get another one of those? It seems like a good idea.
Yeah. I talked to somebody and they were saying, see how it goes.
Right.
It was a money situation, obviously. Yeah. And I told them, I said, well, I think that there's something that could grow there. So a lot of stuff going on.
It seems like Comic-Con for sports, and certainly the Comic-Con fans have paid the way. That thing's a big deal all over the place. We've seen it here.
I got there a little early, was walking around, and they had merchandise, not just booths, but for all the colleges, and a lot of almost like a satellite bookstore type of thing. Mm-hmm. It was not just like if you go to a baseball game and you walk the concourse, you'll see almost like a little booth, not the team shop, but this was somewhere in between the team shop and a little booth that you would see.
Bigger than a booth, smaller than a store.
Right, but they had a lot, and I went on the air with Scotty and Hans, and I said I'd gotten there a couple hours early, and I was working the Utah State merchandise area, but then some lady came along and fired me.
Did you get a laugh?
Very queasy, but yeah.
Scotty didn't see the humor in that. Hey.
He did. I told him, I said, hey, I got a line, so be ready.
Come on. You got a blindside him.
Well, he didn't know where I was going.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Hans was uncomfortable.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I thought Hans would find it funnier.
He did.
His BYU employment on those broadcasts, not impacted by the Utah State.
There might be another reason, but I thought it was cool. I don't know what they expected attendance wise. I mean, I was there from 1:30 to 5 on a Friday.
Right.
So, and I led panel discussions for an hour with Kyle, and then the next hour was Britton Covey and Jaron Hall. And Jaron Hall, I mean, when he turns 35, I would just bag the football stuff. Probably done by then anyway, and just run for president. I mean, that guy, at 4 years old, he's been the most mature guy in a room.
Yeah. wasn't struggling with your questions.
He's just really something, that guy. And, of course, Britton. Everybody loves Britton. They ought to do a sitcom here in Utah.
Everybody loves Britton.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
Yeah, he has no enemies.
He's so self-effacing. And everybody roots for the little guy anyway. And then he makes fun of himself all the time.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It's like you can't make fun of the guy. He's too busy doing it himself.
Right. I mean, I don't know that he has any enemies. I mean, he's got to be the most beloved Ute among BYU.
Yeah, he's negotiated being on both sides of the rivalry flawlessly.
Yeah. And he had a phenomenal career, and he's so short and so small, and here he is 2 years in the NFL, bearing down on a pension. So, and then at the end, Cam Rising was supposed to be there, but he was sick. Uh-oh. No. He was sick. He was supposed to be the third hour. Kyle said he's sick. Nothing serious. To the crowd. And so it was Junior Tafuna, Dorian Singer, and Brant Keithy, the three of them. Which is sort of cool. 3 different guys, 3 different races, and see how they're teammates and how they can come together. We can all take a lesson from that, that's for sure. But Keithy, man, he was talking. He was talking about, you got to focus on the game, 1-0, blah, blah, blah. But, he's thinking national title. And he really trash-talked BYU. All they do is talk, stuff like that. I'm not sure. I think it's a Donovan Mitchell thing. I mean, was it exhausting to living in Utah because I'm on social media all day long and a bunch of no-name idiots are coming after me?
Right.
Yeah.
Who may or may not be living in Utah, who may or may not be Jazz fans, who may or may not be real people. Let's hear it for bots.
It's exhausting, though.
Yeah.
I get it. when you're constantly looking at your responses and you put yourself out there like he did. But Keithy, man, he was talking. I thought he was trash talking. He was taking no prisoners. So yeah, they're thinking that they've got a shot, and I suppose they do. They got an excellent shot to make the playoff. And is it a type of thing when you get in the playoff, anything can happen type of thing? We saw that Diamondbacks making a World Series last year. We've seen other Cinderellas. Not that they would not very much be a Cinderella, but if they're going up against Ohio State and Georgia and whatnot,
Texas.
They would somewhat be a Cinderella. I mean, their program, in my mind, is long past the Cinderella stage. If they're playing for the national title or the semis, there'll be national people who will consider them. But I think that's a erroneous perception. But they'll have that because they don't cover them, and then because I don't cover them that much and I don't know that much about them. Boy, man, they're such the underdog. Because that sort of takes the pressure off of you as to why you hadn't covered them. Oh, they're such an underdog. Well, no, they're not. You just think they are because you are not focused on them. And I get it, because those guys at that level, you have to play the hits and you have to play
the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yeah, where the fan bases are. So you want ratings and all that stuff. So you have to do that. That's just the reason why we're the only show on the station that talks soccer. I mean, it's nice sport and all, but it's not one of the hits because of you two. Nobody else mentions it. So that's the way it goes there. But I don't think that they would be an underdog in those situations. But their program is not, we got a chip on our shoulder, that type of thing. They can claim that, but it's not true. It works both ways. The media can claim, oh, they're so overlooked. It's not true. And the Utah people can not complain, but think that, oh, we're still the underdog. That's not true. If you go up against Georgia and Ohio State, you would be. But in the Big 12, you're not. In the Pac-12, you weren't.
Right. And that's why I think this two-part question gives you two different answers. The Utes think they can get in the football playoff and possibly win it all. What do you think? Of course they can get in the football playoff. You're going to have to be in the top 12. They've been in the top 12. That's doable. It's certainly doable. Of course that would be a goal, and of course they'd be talking about that. Possibly win it all when you threw possibly in there to give it a little wiggle room. But the Big Ten and the SEC are going to be expected to dominate the semifinals and the final. So I think that if you're in a final, certainly you're going to be the underdog and no one's going to believe you. But I really think we're going to see going forward even in the semis. Now, TCU got to a semi. Yeah. It may not have been believed in.
And they won.
And they won a great game with Michigan. Just tons of big plays and touchdowns and points.
But I disagree with you.
And then they got smoked in the final.
If they're in the final and they have beaten Ohio State to get there, and they've got a 25-year-old quarterback who at that point is a few months away from being 26. Are they really that much of an underdog?
They have a quarterback who's older than a third of the NFL starting quarterbacks.
Yeah. So if they get to that point, would they be? If there always has to be a favorite and an underdog.
It would be interesting to see how big an underdog they are, because I think it's clear. I think it's clear they'd be the underdog. You're right. It isn't clear to me how big an underdog they'd be. I mean, at that point, we would have seen 14 games, and we'll know who's healthy, and it's easier to have that talk.
Yeah.
But the Big Ten or the SEC team is going to be the favorite. I mean,
fine, but so what? I mean, Alabama was probably the favorite when they played them years ago.
In that semi, Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. Yeah. Alabama was a big favorite in that game.
Yeah, so...
But Alabama didn't want to be there.
Good. Then they got what they deserved.
Exactly. Take that.
All these things are possible, to quote Kevin Garnett.
Anything is possible.
Yeah. And the season could derail with injuries, but you can say that about any team.
Yep.
Arizona, Fafita goes down. Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So go down the list. There's no difference. The only thing there is Cam has had a couple injuries. So
once upon a time, Ohio State won a national title with 3 different quarterbacks playing during the season.
Yeah, and Cardale Jones, he didn't go there to major in academics. He didn't go to Ohio State to play school.
One of the best quotes.
And now we would say
he's not supposed to be saying that.
Oh, now
it's the truth.
Now it's no big deal.
It really isn't.
It's par for the course.
Give the star quarterback $1 million and watch him change schools.
I mean,
$2 million.
I did the thing on Friday, and Keithy will tell you the NIL played a decision. Well, sure.
Of course it did.
Why wouldn't
it's a lot of money.
Who cares? I mean, yeah, I get you. Oh, and it was classic. So I'm standing there, and we're up on a stage, and the folks are down below, and he's got these huge 4 spotlights, so it's hard to see into the crowd, right? Some lady, before we're getting started, comes up, and she's got a business, and she may be interested. Well, those 3 players, man, they couldn't have gotten to that gal fast enough.
Hold on, I'll be right there.
Yeah. And the next thing you know, here's my cell. Standing
right there, yeah. And this is not your first NIL experience and not your last.
And, yeah, I don't blame any of those guys. This is cash. So go ahead. Go ahead and do that. Yeah, I don't know what's going to come of it. But she said, I may have interest in your services. And, boy, all 3 of them got up and went right to her. Yeah. I think Tafuna was first because he was bigger than the other 2.
Out of the way, boys. Tafuna tossed him out of the way.
Move along.
Like they were little toys.
Keith is a decent-sized guy. Singer's on the smaller side. So, yeah, he did.
So what was your impression of Singer? Because we all wonder, we've talked about Utah wide receivers forever. What if they were better? Impact guy, making plays, making big plays so the quarterback doesn't have to do as much.
He's a sharp kid.
Yeah.
He's been around. Grew up in Minnesota. Went and played at Pinnacle. I've talked to you about Pinnacle as in high school.
Pinnacle is a high school down in Arizona, but a little bit of an athletic factory.
Yeah, they're really good. What's his face? Who's the
Nico
quarterback?
Mannion, Paces Mannion's kid,
Spencer
went there.
Rattler.
Spencer Rattler went there.
They were both there at the same time.
And this is just a partial list of the
and
names
then
you
there's
recognize
Deuce
from
Robinson,
Pinnacle.
who's a stud at SC.
Let's just put it this way. Every year they've got somebody coming out that's...
And so he had a coach or somebody he knew because it was the COVID thing, and he played... And
so he goes to Arizona to play for a year of high school football.
Yeah. And he had Utah was on him, but then he felt like the COVID thing was out the door. Then they had another scholarship offer, but then the coach got fired. So he walks on at Arizona, and he blows up. He has over 1,000 yards. He goes to SC last year, and he didn't even have 300 yards, and he felt like it was Williams had his guys. I'm sure SC has a different
story, right? Yeah.
And since he had a positive impression of Utah
from the recruiting the first time around,
prior, and you have a lot of that. He's not literal bounce back, but you're having a bunch. And I was speaking to the ASU athletic director down in Vegas last week, and we're talking about in-state recruiting. And he said, we still have a long way to go there because we haven't made a mark. What we've been able to do is get the bounce back kid, and they have gotten several kids who played there, went someplace else.
I'm going to leave the Heat. I'm going to go somewhere else. Turns out the grass isn't greener, or they have a coaching change or whatever.
Any number of reasons. Yeah, it might be a family issue.
It's time to come home.
So they've been able to get several guys that way. Don't get them right out of high school, and we'll see over time if the program gets going. Maybe they can get them the first time around. But Singer is sort of that way. He never was. I said, you're coming home to a place you haven't been. And he knew what I was getting at. He's a smart kid, but I'm skeptical. Nothing against him. It has nothing to do with him. It's just the last 10, 15 years I've been hearing about this guy, and then it doesn't happen.
Out, right.
Yeah.
Figures that somebody will do it at some point. But who and when?
But at the same
time, why would you bet on this guy this year?
They have utilized the tight ends a lot more, so that's impacting their lack of production on the outside. But if you did pick out a receiver and all that stuff, if Devon Vele makes the NFL, hopefully he does, he ought to send a little stipend to Bryson Barnes because those two hooked up.
Yeah.
Once they got rid of the Cam Rising drama last year, and this is according to Devon, not us.
No, Devon Vele came on our air,
yeah. And
they were rotating quarterbacks, and he said
it was in practice.
Yeah, he needed more time in practice with whoever was going to be the guy so they could sharpen things.
Right.
And he said it, and it kind of raised our eyebrows. But a few weeks later, when it's all happened, all of a sudden he's got more catches and more yards.
Yeah.
Like, well, he backed it up.
Right. So, when you're coming in here for a one-year deal, it's kind of hard. How many kids have come in? Because he did that at Arizona. He was awesome. Singer. Statistics will bear it out. And then he goes to SC, and you're playing for the Heisman guy, the number 1 pick, and pretty much nothing. So what do we got here? Is there enough time to go in that direction.
Quarterbacks do have guys, and to your point, Cam Rising's had a lot of success throwing to Keithy.
And then Kincaid.
There's guy one, right. Now at least Kincaid's gone. He can't throw to Kincaid, in Buffalo now. So, but with the focus on tight ends, we'll see.
Yeah, and Keithy's, in my mind, prior to the injury, pre-injury, just as good as Kincaid was. And plus, they've got 2 or 3 other guys that are really good.
The tight end assembly line looks like it's all ready to go.
Yeah.
Kyle was talking about tight ends at Big 12 Media Day, and he just couldn't stop. He was naming every tight end on the roster.
They've got like 5 guys.
Yeah.
They're really, I think sometimes we overblow the depth, but not at that position. And King, the kid, the UCLA transfer, what's his name, Ryan? They got a lot, and I know I'm leaving off a couple other guys, but they've got some guys there, so that may impact it. Which, from the team perspective, who cares? If the ball's in the end zone, you don't care who's on the other end of it. It doesn't
get in the end zone 5 or 6 times a game.
If
you'll
your
be fine.
Parents, you might care. The impact.
No, if your parents, you definitely care.
Your pro career.
Yeah.
Your pro chances anyway. But I remain skeptical. And they got the Pittman is back, right? And then they got another receiver that they got for transfer. I mean, they got all these guys, and just because you have them, there's got to be some relationship there. We've seen it over and over and over again. BYU too. Max Hall to Dennis Pitta. That was a constant theme we saw. And then they marry sisters. So must have been something going. Just keep it in the family on 3. Family on 3.
I thought we were talking football.
They got new. When they said family on 3, they meant
it. We will take this commitment to the next level.
So, but Singer, he's got a chip. If you want somebody who has a chip, Singer's got it. There's no doubt. He knows. He knows he had big time things in Arizona, and then it
didn't work in
out.
L.A., and he's got something to prove, and he knows people doubt, and he knows why, and he can't say anything because the production wasn't there.
Right.
So he's got to go do it.
Right. But talking to him, I like what he had to say.
Okay, you've heard a lot about guys, this guy, but you haven't really fully believed in a guy, with the possible exception of Devon Vele, but he was limited by what was going on at quarterback.
I always thought Devon Vele was underutilized.
I know. But he was limited in when he should have had this awesome final year. He'd been in the program. He was all set up for a big year. They don't have Cam.
I don't think they needed Cam Rising for him to have a better season.
He still could have had a better year.
The situation. He was a good player, and I said it 2 years ago.
Throw it to him,
And the NFL backed me up by drafting him.
Yes, but they threw it to Kincaid.
Yeah, and they run.
Yeah.
So there's only so many plays in a game. They don't toss the ball to the wideouts 35 times a game like other programs do. And Vele knew that going in. He wasn't complaining about it. He was just telling you, this is what we do. So if I don't like it, well, that's on me. I knew going into the program what the program was about. And I'm not so sure that I see it changing. And if you got a great group of tight ends, the thing might be different this year. Cam's got all sorts of experience. So whatever Ludwig has in the playbook, now's the time to use it. Because you'll literally
never have
a kid with this type of experience. And Andy's around 60, so I don't know how much longer he's going to coach. And you're never going to have this much experience. So go ahead and toss the ball around. Do whatever you got to do. And people may not know this. Keithy ran for over 1,000 yards in high school his senior year. And for good measure, if they didn't get the first down, he punted. He was the punter. So, I mean, and we saw him line in the backfield a little bit there. Would have been basically 3 years ago now, because he got injured in the first conference game 2 years ago. And then obviously he didn't play last year. So we got to go back to the 2021 season. And I asked the 3 of them, hey, I love to ask the seniors, did it go by fast? And of course they'll say, yeah. And Keithy said, well, yeah, it's kind of strange. I thought it went by fast. I thought I was done 3 years ago. And here I am, still here.
Get him a rim shot.
Yeah.
All right, DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. The Jazz spend some money, and they're going to have to spend some more money. You like the way they're spending it? We'll get to that next. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
It's what you want.
You know, I was babysat until 8th grade. Dolores Arnold used to babysit me every day after school. And
Dolores?
Her husband, yeah.
Like you got like 220-pound 8th grade hands.
Can we not focus on that?
You're like, hey, Dolores. Hi, Hans. I think it's funny the thought of a 8th grade Hans Olsen probably pushing 2 bills, sitting in and being babysat.
You guys let me know when you're done so I can finish my story.
Tell us more about Dolores.
Anyways, her husband, Don, liked MASH.
Sitting next to Don on the couch watching MASH.
Hey, Don, can I borrow your shaver?
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Yak, why'd you pick the band of the day today?
Yeah, it's Creedence Clearwater Revival, if I can get the words out of my mouth correctly. On this day in 1968, their self-titled debut album came out.
Oh, I remember, man. I was at Tower Records at midnight.
I'm sure you were. Right there in line, right at the front.
Tower Records. Used to be these ads that ran over and over in San Diego. D-O-W Dow. Go down there and get all kinds of audio stuff. Cassette tapes. Only whatever the price was. D-O-W Dow. Live Nation bringing you the band of the day. Creedence Clearwater Revival. For all the live concerts and events in 2024, check out livenation.com. All right, the question today was all about the Utes, but you did put up question today, part 2. Jazz lock up Johnny Juzang with a 4-year deal. Is it a good move? Joe, this franchise is a joke from the top to the bottom.
And everything in between, I might add.
And the worst part is the community is going to give a billionaire tax money to restore an arena that doesn't need it. At least it doesn't need it until an owner and GM pull their head out and put an actual NBA team on the floor.
Well, if you're going to restore something, does that mean it was already there at one time?
Yes.
I don't think so. I don't think they're restoring anything.
They're reconfiguring.
Yeah. So get your words right and get back to me.
That's a Jim Calhoun, people. Stay with the classic quotes.
And Steve Cleveland played golf with Jim Calhoun.
Get your facts straight.
Down there at Hilton Head. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. It's just your town, your city. I'll be long gone, so I'm not worried about it. But I was surprised that they re-upped him for 4 years. I didn't think he showed enough to where they thought that he would be a rotational player 3 years from now.
I haven't seen the breakdown on how front-loaded this is or isn't. Under the theory that he shot it a little bit at the end of the year when, there's pressure on him individually because he's trying to stay in the NBA. But, those were not the biggest games. They were dumping games at the end. So put as much value as you want into that. But he shot it pretty well at the end of the season. So lock him up, and then if he is something, because everybody's looking for shooters, you got him, especially if you front-load it. They are like $15 million, round numbers, but $15 million below the salary floor. They've got to spend the money on somebody. So if they gave him $12 million and they front-loaded it a little bit, what do you got to lose? Seems like a pretty safe gamble for a guy who shot 41% from 3 last year. With the salary cap.
Well, what are you looking to accomplish, though?
Hopefully you find a shooter and you have him really inexpensively and you have him tied up for 4 years.
Okay, you can hope all you want.
Role guy, but it's like you're looking for guy 1 and 2, and he's guy day 9, 10, 11 or something.
And that surprised me. They lock up a guy who's 9, 10, 11 for 4 years. Yeah. I would think those guys would be interchangeable. And why make a commitment to somebody?
Well, if he can sustain 41% shooting, then they figure he isn't interchangeable. Everybody wants those guys. But you're right. If he drops back to 37%,
so he's going to be a rotational player in
your
mind. Because if he can sustain 41% and he's not a rotational player, who cares?
Yeah. My guess is, they're just betting $2 million he will be, and $2 million with the new TV money coming in, they don't care.
I mean,
they're like, it's worth the gamble.
About money either way.
They do. You got to budget all of this.
But this is peanuts.
It is, and that's the reason to lock him up, because it's peanuts.
I don't think no.
But to
your
point,
I lock him up if I think he's going to be a player 3-4 years from now. I don't think that he will be. I don't know that he will be. My guess would be no.
Brandon, that was the big Danny Ainge free agency plan. I'm starting to lose faith.
No,
and of course
Drew Eubanks was the big free agent.
Loose faith.
This is just retaining one of your own guys.
Hector, yes, 2 exclamation points. You need guys like this, and then build it up, hopefully.
Don't they have enough guys like this? Haven't they already cornered the market on that?
They don't have enough guys who can shoot 40%, if he can sustain it. Scott, doesn't move the needle for me.
You just look at a stat, and it becomes such a big deal to you. At what level has he proven that he can shoot 40% in games that matter?
That's where I started this. He didn't shoot it in games that matter.
Then why bring it up?
Because they haven't played the games that matter. They have to evaluate guys on the games they've played. They haven't played games that mattered in 3 years now.
I disagree. I mean, the first half of the season, when the place is going nuts, to them, those games mattered.
Okay, well, to that point, the games mattered to Johnny Juzang. He was feeling pressure to stay in the NBA. You don't get to be on two-way contracts forever. He did it twice. Time to fish or cut bait. So he did enough to get the 4-year deal. So there was pressure on him individually to extend his NBA career.
Yeah, I don't see it.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone, and it is time to begin in an open championship week to qualify people for our You in a Golf major giveaway. Be caller 12 right now at 801-575-ZONE, and you'll be assigned a golfer in this week's open championship at Royal Troon. If your golfer wins, you'll be rewarded by our friends at You in a Golf, who've been serving Utah golfers since 1971. DJ and PK, do it right now. Caller 12, 801-575-ZONE. 801-575-ZONE. We will get our first qualifier. Steve Cleveland joins us next. BYU has got a lot of talent from all over the globe. Now, quickly melded into a cohesive team. That's next. Stay with us. DJ and PK brought to you in part by America First Credit Union. Get the official debit cards of the Utah Jazz, University of Utah Sports, Real Salt Lake, and more exclusively at America First Credit Union. We are joined now by Steve Cleveland. Heard it through the grapevine, Steve. There's a lot of talent at BYU basketball, and it comes from all over the globe. 5 different countries. Half the team is new. The coaching staff is new. It's awesome to be talented. Anybody who's had a team that wasn't talented knows that. But the talent's all got to come together. How's that going to work?
Well, you do have a lot of pieces to put together. I haven't been over to watch practice yet, and I'm hoping to do that sooner than later here. But I looked at it the other day. I was just kind of looking at the roster, and really there's 11 guys that could actually play in a game, and I mean, that have reputations. And I started thinking that, they've got a couple of freshmen, a couple of walk-ons, and so forth. But everybody here had to have been told that, hey, there's going to be an opportunity to play. And I've never seen anybody really play 10 people in a collegiate game consistently. So we know that's probably not going to happen. There's going to be injuries and other things. But literally, I'm looking at this, and there's 10 guys that they've brought in that you would think could play. I can go through all the names. We probably don't need to do that. But at the end of the day, they have great depth. They have a good combination of young players. I think they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think 7 freshmen and 6 or 7 freshmen. So, we know the thing. When people talk to me about this group, and I'm just saying, obviously the 2 foreign kids that played in the EuroLeague and they've had a lot of competition and reps and so forth. So we got to look at these guys as they're different freshmen, and they're only going to probably be here a year anyway. But I just see typically it takes younger players a while to develop. The good news is there's enough depth here that they can wait and take their time. But it's quite a task to figure out who's going to play. They've been practicing. I've heard good things. There seems to be great energy. and everybody seems pretty connected. So it is you mentioned it, and putting this roster together and then making sure that everybody is happy, and you come here whether you're coming over from Europe or you're coming from as a transfer, when will there opportunities be? But there are definitely 10 people there that can play, and how that plays out, we'll just have to wait and see. You got new coaches, you got new players. There's always going to be a transition, but at the end of the day, that's a good problem to have.
This is something that you did almost on a yearly basis as a junior college coach because rosters turn over literally every year. So how did you implement some type of team unity on the floor?
One of the things is that we were in a rebuilding mode, and I think pretty much everybody understood that. And so when we did bring in junior college guys, it was difficult because there's 2 or 3 young men in the program. We're not going to mention any names, but it was really difficult for us to make some changes and not necessarily take away a scholarship, but just knowing that there wasn't going to be an opportunity for playing time. And typically those people left and transferred. But it's never a great thing. It's not fun to go through that process, especially when you've been involved in a lot of the young men that we coaching were on the roster when we first got there. We had not recruited any of them. And we knew that we had to get better. We needed more depth. And, you can say what you want, but those are difficult things for coaches and for parents and players when you have to make those changes. It'll be interesting to see the dynamics of this and how it plays out. And, a year from now, how many of these guys are still here. And, and it seems to me with this coaching staff, there's kind of a treasure chest of guys in Europe and different places that they're going to go and find guys. But looking at this roster and looking at what I did were kind of 2 different things, but it was a difficult process, especially when it didn't work out and players, thought they were going to be playing and you bring new guys in and the only way you can get better. It was hard. It was hard, but it was just something that had to happen. We couldn't just stay where we were or we wouldn't have got to the point where we could turn it around and get to tournaments and win some championships. But there's a price to pay for everyone. And I think as a head coach, that was one of the most difficult times in my coaching life was the first couple of years where we basically asked other players to give up a scholarship or to transfer and that we were going to go a new direction. But, it seems like it's an easy thing to do, but for a coach, especially the head coaches, it was challenging, to be honest with you, at the first couple of years. And I think we made the right decision and got the right people here and got everybody on the bus and together, and we were able to have some success. But during that process, it was tough.
Do you think it'll be easier for guys if they, and this is probably just trying to find some stupid silver lining that doesn't exist, but when so many guys are focused on getting better to get to the next level, as long as they're developing, most of that doesn't happen in games. That's where you show it off. As long as they're developing and they feel like they're getting better, can they roll with stuff? Or everybody thinks they're one and done and you got to play, and so it's going to be a problem?
No, you know what? I think that's a really good point because not just BYU, but certainly Coach Young and a lot of the things I've heard him say is about developing and get to the next level, okay? And that is a goal. It may not be a realistic goal for some of these young men, even though that's what the mantra is. We're going to get you to the next level. The next level could be playing in Egypt. It could be playing in, Australia. It could be playing in Europe. And I don't know that there's a lot of lottery. I mean, we know that the 2 young freshmen from Europe are guys that apparently are going to be probably draft picks and high draft picks possibly even. So that makes sense. But for everybody else, I think it's like next level where I can get paid and I can maybe make $200,000 or $300,000 a year playing, in like I said, Australia or playing in France or playing in Spain. And there's so many leagues. And we have a lot of guys at BYU that played in Europe and played for 8, 10, 12, 13 years and really set themselves up for life. And because a lot of that money is not taxable coming from there, and there's a lot of different intricacies of all that. But I do know that the NBA is everybody's dream, but there's a great living to be made in Europe, in Australia, but Europe especially, where they're paying guys $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. You spend 10 years there, you save your money, invest properly, you're kind of set to go for a greater part of your life. So it's next level. It's developing. I think every coach is doing it. I don't think it's just at BYU. That's the sales pitch for everyone. And in the Big 12, there's a lot of good players, and there'll be a lot of those players will be playing in Europe, or a few of them will be playing in the NBA. But that is what is being talked about, not just BYU. I mean, everywhere. Even when I was coaching, we were talking about getting to the next level. Well, initially for us, getting to the next level was having a competitive team, win championships, and then all of a sudden, we had guys that got drafted. We had guys that went to Europe, and guys that I recruited and didn't even coach a great deal because I went to Fresno. Most of those guys played for 8 or 10 years and set themselves up. Some of them were married, some of them were single, but that's what you're going to do. You're always going to do that as a coach, and that's and I think Kevin Young has really made it really clear. I mean, he's got, I think 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's got 7 or 8. He's got 7 coaches, and all of them have for the most part, most of them will have that niche of working guys out and getting them better through development, and then that mantra is something that becomes important in the program. This is what we do. It's a great recruiting tool, but it's one that this is not BYU doing this. It's being done throughout the country. Top 25 teams, they're the top 50 teams. They're doing the same things and letting them know that you're here, you get a chance to play, get better, and go play in the league. And that's kind of what's happening in the world today.
There isn't such a thing as too much talent, is there? That's like too much money.
Probably not. But when you have moments like that where you have too much talent, guys now just transfer. And with a portal, it's a perfect situation, because I'm telling you that this roster won't be the same a year from now. Okay, you'll have guys leave, you'll have guys transfer as they see that they're not going to be playing. But the cool thing for them and for all of young men and young women in the country playing collegiate basketball is you make a phone call, you get in the portal, you drop out, and next thing you know, you got a place. And I'm waiting to see who is going to be the first person to play on 4 different teams in 4 years. I don't think that's happened yet, but it may have. But I think that allows these players. It's not nearly as painful when you jump right into the portal. It's not personal. It's not parents being unhappy or family being unhappy about how you treated my son. It's like, hey, it's not going to work. That's fine. We'll just jump into the portal. And so it's not as difficult as it used to be, and probably as toxic as it used to be when parents and family and support were upset because you didn't keep your promises of doing this. Well, they can always say, and it's not just, again, BYU, but, hey, we spent a lot of time in skill development, helping him to get to the next level, and he's just not quite there yet. He's not going to have the playing time he wants. He jumps and goes. And so I think it's positive either way. You can come someplace and realize after 6 months, man, this is not going to work for me. I'm not playing, and da-da-da-da-da. And now you've got a quick escape route and another new opportunity to jump in and be with a new team and continue developing your skills, so hope that someday you do get to the next level and can play for money.
The late Bill Walton used to use the phrase, expand your mind. Four teams in 4 years. Come on, how about 5 schools in 5 years? Let's expand our minds, Steve. Anything is possible.
I didn't even think about that this year. But we're going to watch and see this just right in front of our eyes. It's going to unfold, and we're going to see the things that we've been talking about in previous months and moving forward. And it's not as dramatic as it used to be for anybody. I mean, I can remember dealing with parents at times, even in junior college, high school, when someone's not happy Well, it's so difficult these days. Now, I know in Utah, they can transfer now. From everything I've been told, you can play in a school 1 year and transfer to that school the next and not have to sit out. In California, you always had to sit out a year, regardless of whether you change residence or not. I don't know what that looks like in California today, but I know I've watched the high school situation. I have grandsons who are playing in the middle school and the high school, and it's kind of a free market there as well. So I don't know. I don't want to say something that's not true, but I do know that people are transferring, they're not moving, and they're playing in a new school. And I think the new rules in Utah allow that. If I'm not correct on that, you guys can correct me later, but that's what's happening in Utah County because I'm seeing it. And it's simple as that. So it's now happening at all levels, and which makes it a little softer landing for the next place you go.
You think it's dangerous, or how dangerous is it to get in the one-and-done cycle?
If you're talking about one or two guys, I don't think it really matters. And it seems that there's enough connections here where that can happen. And that doesn't happen for everyone. You got to be connected. And I think one of the things about Coach Young is he and a number of members of his staff have worked overseas, have worked in the NBA. And so they do have contacts. So that is an advantage. But, bringing in 3 or 4 one-and-done guys, that's going to be more difficult. The transition is going to be more difficult. It's going to be more challenging for the coaches trying to keep people happy. And what you're doing now, going forward, and I don't think for a moment that getting one-and-done guys can help your program. There's no question. But over time, you do that, and you kind of know that as people are looking down the road and it's a mom and dad and family and they're trying to figure out where they want to go. And, they're just going to bring in new players next year and then my son won't be able to play or my daughter won't be able to play, whatever the circumstances are. That could be a challenge. But I think if you're talking about 1 or 2 of them each year, if that's what happens, we don't know that's going to happen. But if it does, you remember, though, there are guys in that program that are freshmen and sophomores and juniors. And when you bring those guys in, you're definitely going to be in a position to win championships and take your program to the next level. But it's not going to come without some angst and some issues with parents and young men and young women who do not have an opportunity like they thought they were going to have.
I don't know how much you watch Brandon Carlson up at the U, but I've always been a fan of his game. And watching him a little bit in the summer league, blocking shots, moves well. He's with Toronto. I think he's got a shot. What's your evaluation?
Man, I really, really liked him. I ended up going to 3 Utah games up there and watched him play against top teams. And I mean, I loved him. I mean, he's bouncy, he's athletic, he can shoot it. And I think that he's a guy that they put on some weight, they get him stronger, that he could play in the league a long time. I mean, I've watched a lot of college basketball, and I'm not sure that I would, watching him playing 2 or 3 times, I could tell you what his strengths and weaknesses are. But in every game that I went to, he played well. He had 18 or 20. There were a couple of games. There was one game he really shot the 3 ball well, and a couple others where he didn't. But I think he has the ability to shoot the 3. I love him. I think there's a place for him. Maybe he's not strong enough right now and has the body type. But when you have, I think they've got about 17 people on the roster now, something of that nature. Man, I'm keeping that guy. I really like him. I just felt like he was made right plays, and he had a great attitude. I never saw an attitude. And I know 3 games is probably not enough to evaluate somebody, but I know one of the games was Arizona, one of them was BYU, and someone else. But in all those games, he played well.
I know there's 1,000 things to look at, and that's why you got to see more than 3 games. But if you have some size, if you can move a little bit, and if you can shoot it, then the scouts are coming back for a fourth game. Steve Cleveland's retired. He may not be coming back for a fourth game, but the scouts are coming back for a fourth game. It seems like it's a pretty simple equation, at least at the start of the evaluation process. You have those three things, you're in at some level.
Well, yeah, especially when you got tons of film. Okay, so you got a plethora of film from the last 2 years that they're watching all the games, they're seeing his development, they're seeing what's happening. Then you go watch him play in person. And in those games that I went to were all big-time games, and so there's always scouts there from the pros that are watching games. And so you take the film, you take watching the games in person, then if, I don't know if he got brought in and went through the process and got interviewed in the draft combine, or if that even happened. I hadn't followed him, but they're pretty diligent, these NBA guys and coaches and scouts, about finding out everything. And they talked there. I remember when I had 8 or 10 Division I type guys that could play at the next level, and it was like they'd come in and sit down, and they want to know every little thing about the player, from the intangibles, and what he was like off the court, and how was he as a teammate. What kind of work ethic did he have? Was he coachable? All those things. So they're pretty thorough and taking a look at all things in terms of the draft. But I just can't think of a reason why you wouldn't take a chance on him and put him into the program for 2 or 3 years. I mean, you got 17 guys. So if we can bring 17 people in, I'm thinking that a year or two from now, this young man will be able to play in the league. And if he can't, then he'll go over and play at the highest Euro League and be successful there as well. But I hope that he's given a chance, because I just feel like he's got an upside that, his body needs to be stronger and bigger for the league and stuff. But he's so bouncy and so athletic that he puts a little girth on him. I think he can play in the league.
Steve, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, guys. Take care. Bye.
DJ PK, when we come back, Jay Drew, Deseret News, his impression of the Big 12 media days. Just to reinforce what he already thinks, or did he learn a couple new things that changed the way he thinks about Big 12 football? We'll talk with Jay next. Stay with us.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
I don't think you can make any firm judgments one way or the other, although you do like to see the more experienced players play their way out of Summer League. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Like, I showed what I got to show. I'm going to hit the beach. The Jazz are going to be super young. So all these guys will get opportunities during the season at some point or another, and we'll have to be ready to step in and take advantage. That was true for Taylor Hendricks last year, even toward the end of the season. It'll be true for these young players, because the Jazz are going into this season super young.
And I would keep Keontae out there. I know he didn't play the second game. I wouldn't play him every night if you don't have to.
But send him to Vegas.
Send him to Vegas and keep him there through the last game. Yeah. Why not? This is good for him.
It is.
He was way better in Game 3 than he was in Game 1. So let's see what it looks like in Game 7 and Game 9, in this whole process.
It's good for all these guys.
It is.
It's good for Walker Kessler.
It's really good for Walker.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We are joined by Jay Drew, Deseret News, beat writer for the BYU Cougars. Jay, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Jay, you're going to put the golf clubs away and go cover football on a regular basis. Are you mentally prepared for the changing of the seasons?
I got a couple more weeks left, so I'm trying to get there. But every year it seems to get a little harder and harder. But that's my life.
When's camp start? Did they give you a date yet?
I don't think they've said anything official. I've heard somewhere around August 31st, whatever
July.
that Wednesday is, or July 31st. Yeah, whatever. I think it's going to start on a Wednesday.
Yeah, well, this camp has an opportunity to be interesting, because there's a quarterback battle, and that's always something that entertains us to see what happens. I certainly think it'll be Retzlaff, but I don't know how many games he's going to start. What have you been hearing about Bohannon being able to rehab himself to be able to compete at the level he wants to, which is not something that happened in the spring practices?
Yeah, from everything I've heard, Bohannon is finally healthy. He can make kind of all the throws that he's been asked to throw. That wasn't the case in the spring. They tried to kind of tell us it was, but there was kind of a chat with Gary right at the final spring practice, and he pretty much admitted that he couldn't do everything that they wanted him to do. But at the golf appreciation media day they had, Aaron Roderick said that Gary finally could make all the throws, and he had 100% of his arm strength back. So going off of that, I think he'll be ready in 2 weeks to do that.
Do you think any of the other quarterbacks are close, or is it going to be those two?
I have the sneaking hunch or suspicion that they're opening it up just a little bit more than they were kind of letting on in the spring. And I think the reason is, obviously, they got McKay Hillstead from Utah State, and they got this Trayson Bourget from Western Michigan, who's, from all accounts, has had a really good spring and has also been impressive in some of these player-in practices. So I think it'll be a little bit more open than maybe it was coming right out of spring. But that's really difficult to manage. 4 guys, if you're trying to get first-team reps to 4 guys, that's not optimal by any stretch. But so I like Pat said, I think Jake Retzlaff is kind of the front runner right now. But I think we'll see, the other 3 get at least a few first-team reps, maybe that first week or 2, just to make sure they're moving in they're on the right path as far as identifying Retzlaff as the guy.
I know A-Rod wants to utilize the quarterback run game more than he did last year, and even with Jaron Hall, because they had to protect those guys. They didn't have a whole lot. Now all of a sudden they've got a bunch of guys that may maybe be able to turn to. What type of athleticism do you think Retzlaff has to be able to use his feet effectively in the offense?
I think he's a really good athlete. I think he showed flashes of that last year in the 4 games that he started. I don't think he's as good of an athlete as like Jaron Hall, like you said, or maybe even Zach Wilson. But I think he's got a good baseball background. He does have the kind of the unusual throwing motion, throws a lot of sidearm balls. Yeah, I think he's a decent athlete, and I think Bohanna is a good athlete too, and has that escapability factor. I think with Retzlaff, what they really need to work on is kind of his pocket presence and knowing when to take off and knowing when to, to hang in the pocket a little bit longer, look for an open receiver. So I think that's really important this year because they really got to rely on their other guys, on their weapons. They've got a really good, deep receiving core and that they need to use. They're a little thin at running back, and so I don't know if you can qualify them as weapons that can be used a lot. But I think all pretty much all 4 of these quarterbacks that we've talked about are pretty good athletes and can run the ball if needed.
Do you believe that the continuity, the number of guys they have returning is really going to pay dividends? I mean, it's much sexier to have someone come in from the transfer portal and they scored 20 touchdowns. But do you think they get that kind of productivity and eliminate mistakes? Because mistakes cost them the Oklahoma and Kansas games last year.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. I think the consistency, the continuity will really help a lot. I'm on record. I still think they should have brought in a running back, as they've done in the past few years with Aiden Robbins, and before that, I forgot his name from Cal, Brooks, Christopher Brooks. So, and even before that, Tyson.
Williams.
I'm so bad.
Williams.
Yeah, Williams, right. But so I've said all along, I think they needed another big-time running back out of the transfer portal. But other than that, I think, and of course they got Bohannon out of the portal and McKay Hillstead as well. But I think they're counting on this chemistry, continuity, whatever you want to call it, to carry the day. especially on offense, and we'll see what happens. But as years past has shown us, BYU goes through running backs. They get guys injured, and there's already rumors that maybe a running back this year is not going to be able to start the first couple of good games. So, that's where I kind of stand on that.
A lot of hype around this position coach, TJ Woods, along the offensive line. Makes me wonder how much can a position coach make a difference as opposed to the players who need to be able to do the job.
Yeah, I think you need talent, and I think cohesion is kind of, from the offensive linemen that I've talked to, like Braden Keim and Connor Pay down in Vegas. They talk a lot about just playing together and getting those reps under their belt as a unit. And Waylon Lapuaho is also back, and I think you'll see a lot better play out of Caleb Etienne, the Oklahoma State transfer. I don't know. When Jeff Grimes came a few years ago, I noticed that he had a pretty good impact. So maybe there is something to that, and that TJ Woods can kind of be that X factor that gets that unit playing better. But I think the bigger thing is just those guys more cohesion, having played together, kind of knowing what they're going to do. And I think it'll help if last year going into spring or fall camp, we didn't know who would be the starting center, whether it would be Paul Maile or Connor Pay. And I think they made a mistake, and they kind of not really solidifying who that would be. That's a really important position on the offensive line. And I think it caused a little bit of a setback with their uncertainty there before they settled on Pay. So I think all those factors together, that we should see a little bit of improvement from the offensive line.
What did you learn at Big 12 Media Days, or did it just reinforce everything you already knew?
Yeah, it pretty much reinforced everything I already knew. I kind of wrote a little bit about this. There seems to be more of a, I don't know if you want to call it a chip on their shoulder or just, I think I used the word that Kalani was a little bit defiant, and some people took umbrage with that, but that's just how I saw it. It just seemed like they had more of a quiet confidence that they weren't going to really talk about, how good they were going to be. They were just going to basically say, hey, we're going to go out and prove it, and talk is cheap, kind of that sort of thing. And in years past, it just seems like they've been a little bit more, I don't know if you'd say sure of themselves, at least outwardly, publicly. So that's one thing that stood out. The other thing is I think, like you said, they're really banking on this whole, they didn't hit the transfer portal. They're banking on this continuity, and that guys will be much better in Jay Hill's second year, learning the system. They'll be much better on offense because, like you said, last year they'll eliminate some of the mistakes and rely on, these returning starters, these guys that have been there like Chase Roberts and Darius Lassiter and Keelan Marion and all these other receivers they got to, and along the offensive line to just carry that late game momentum. Even though there were 2 losses last year to end the season, I think that really gave them a shot in the arm that they could, if they could play a little bit more mistake-free, that they could compete on a week-to-week basis in the Big 12. I think that those last 2 games gave them a little bit of hope.
SMU early, I'm really intrigued by that game. They win that game, and I think their path to 6 wins gets a lot easier. They lose that game, and I think it's going to be very difficult. How about that?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And then, the Wyoming game in week 3 isn't going to be a cakewalk either. But they lose, like you said, that SMU game, and that's a tough game. SMU's a good team, and BYU squeaked by them in a bowl game a few years ago. But obviously this game's on SMU's home field, and they're in the ACC now, and so I think it's going to be a really difficult road to overcome if they don't go 3-0 in the preseason or in the non-conference games. and 2 of those are on the road. So it's I know a lot of media members talked to Tom Homo about why that had to happen, and he gave a pretty good explanation of just when it's pretty hard to go out and find in 2 years' time non-conference opponents, especially those that'll come to your stadium. So that's kind of where they're at with that as far as that goes. But it's definitely, it's going to be tough if they can't go 3-0 in the non-conference. I don't see them making a bowl game. I think it's going to be kind of a make or break type of scenario there.
Teams that were voted / perceived as the bottom third of the league were rewarded with schedule is very heavy with teams that are perceived as the top third of the league. And those teams were given pretty soft schedules, presumably trying to bolster the spot at multiple teams to maybe 3 getting into the playoff. Was everybody okay with that? Was there grumbling over that? People just ready to, it's a 16-team league, it's weird, and they're trying to make money and increase their profiles. People just live with it?
Yeah, I think so. I didn't hear a lot of grumbling. I think I did ask Kalani about about the lack of divisions. Basically, the theory that you take the 2 best teams to the championship game rather than, being caught with the chance of leaving one of the 2 best teams home that day. But I didn't hear a lot of complaining. I just think, and I think if you look at the history of the Big 12, where, let's face it, some of these predictions haven't been really that good. A few years ago, I think Baylor was even picked number 1, and they just, were horrible. And I don't even think they finished with a winning record. So it's just really difficult to predict. And I think coaches, especially the ones that have been in the league a long time, like Mike Gundy, basically say, hey, the preseason predictions are never really right. No one really knows what's going to happen. So it's just, you just kind of play it as it lies, so to speak, to use a golf term.
Is this going to be the first Final Four in basketball that you'll cover?
Oh boy, I don't know, man. Hype is off the charts. It's crazy. I'm just going to say I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, it looks really good on paper. I mean, what Kevin Young has done and the talent he's assembled is pretty impressive. I mean, you got to hand it to him, but you got to win the games. You got to, you can't win championships in July or June or whenever. So it's definitely off to a great start, but we will see. I think I'm going to kind of hold back or reserve judgment until a couple months into the season to see if this whole experiment, and it's kind of a grand experiment to see if you can literally do this at BYU. It'll be really intriguing and fun to watch.
You staying with the coaches who say get old, stay old? Because there's a lot of potential on this team, but there's also a lot of young guys on this team.
Yeah, I think it was really key that they were able to retain kind of that core of Foose and Dallin Hall and Richie Saunders, Trevin Nell. I think they've got kind of a good nucleus of guys coming back that kind of know the culture and know all that, and it'll be a tough to get all these guys to gel together. And I wrote a thing the other day about you can only play 5 guys at one time, and there's only one basketball, so it's going to be interesting to see if he can juggle the minutes and keep guys happy and all that sort of thing. Because I guarantee you, there's at least 12 guys on that roster who believe they should be the starter, and they've had the talent to be the starter. So it's going to be really fun to watch how he juggles all those minutes and keeps guys happy.
Jay Drew, grab those golf clubs and run for the door right now while there's time.
Going to try to get out tomorrow out to the Women's Am Media Day out at Talon's Cove, but my golf game's just gone in the tank. I'm horrible. I'm struggling to even break 90, so we'll see.
All right.
Might be good for me to put up the clubs for a little while. That's what I'm hinting at.
All right, thanks, Jay. We appreciate it.
Okay, guys. Thanks for having me on. Have a good day.
Jay Drew, you can read him in the Deseret News covering BYU and the Big 12. His first Final Four. Nice. Skip right over Sweet 16 and Elite 8 stuff. That'll be a cakewalk.
Well, he's already done that.
Yeah, he's been there, done that. No
Jimmer.
No big deal there.
Jimmer got him there. This is Sweet 16.
Yeah. All right, DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Yak, you want to do another qualifier now or after the break?
Let's do it now.
Yeah, see, Yak's impatient. He wants to go. And you want to qualify, so call now, 801-575-ZONE. 801-575-ZONE. It's our You Win a Golf major giveaway, and caller 12 will be assigned a golfer for this week's Open Championship at Royal Troon. If your golfer wins, you will get a fabulous prize from our friends at You Win a Golf. They've been serving Utah golfers since 1971.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
How does this team handle being the team to beat year one? There's a lot of teams in this conference that have been playing each other over the years, and they're like, really? You think you're going to come in here and you're going to run this place? No. They're going to have a target on their back, even though they haven't played any of these teams. There's a target that's going to be on Utah's back year one. It's crazy that that's the case. I mean, did Utah have a target on their back when they went to the Pac-12? No. Did TCU when they went Big 12 initially, when they made the move up? Did BYU last year? No. To come into a league year one at this level, at the highest level of college football, and expect to win it all, everyone's looking around going like, who are these guys thinking they're going to come in here and win our league? No way.
Right.
So that's an interesting dynamic, and Utah's going to have to be up for that.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
There's the Chevy Strong play of the game. Know it today. Yastrzemski. Fly ball to center, diving effort. I guess they gave that an error. Then the throw definitely deserved an effort. It's a little league, man. Once you hit the ball, you coach your kids at that age? When you're coaching the little ones, just start running and keep running. Make them make a play. Be aggressive on the base paths.
Well, and if you don't make a play, then I have you keep running.
Tough guy.
Yeah.
Hey, might as well tell the 7-year-olds how it's going to be. It's how it's going to be later in life, kids. Get that thick hide now. All right, that's the Chevy Strong play of the game. JJ and Alex will call for it after 3 o'clock today, and you can win fabulous prizes. Major League Baseball at the All-Star break. Don't the stats say of the 6 division champs, 4 or 5 have got it covered now? And with the wild card, a lot of them have a cushion anyway. So they're in.
You're looking at postseason you're talking
Yep.
about? Sure. But I don't think for the Dodgers, the postseason is where it's at. I don't think for the Phillies,
reaching the postseason and where it's at. It's what you do in the postseason is everything for those teams.
If you haven't been there in a while, then it's a big deal for your ball clubs, sure. Or if you were expected to get there, like the Diamondbacks, expected to get there because of what happened last year, and they got a long way to go to get themselves there this year. We're a little bit past the halfway. We call it the halfway, but we're past that.
Teams are closing in on 100 games. Not quite there yet, but close. Most of them are around 95.
Yes. Baseball season goes fast, as does the football season and every other season for that matter. We'll see what happens at trade deadlines. Who will be sellers and who will be buyers? That's one thing that's sort of unique to baseball. You hear the phrase, are you going to be a seller or are you going to be a buyer? You have it a little bit in the NBA, but not near as much. When I hear, are you a buyer or a seller, I immediately think trade deadline baseball.
Because, and the NBA does have it to some degree, but the NBA has a salary cap and Major League Baseball doesn't. And the bigger rosters. And to get a pitcher who's the 9th or 10th guy on one staff, yeah, but when you need one guy, one lefty, it can feel like a big deal. And a 3rd or 4th starter can be a big deal.
Right, and you can trade for prospects who can blow up into Hall of Famers. You're not going to do that in the NBA.
We pretty much know who they're going to be.
Right. Yeah.
And they don't get traded.
There's no guy that you get and he blows up.
Yeah.
John Smoltz was traded at the deadline.
Yeah.
And he was a Hall of Famer. The only guy to be a Hall of Famer twice as a reliever and a starter.
Trevor Hoffman was a minor leaguer, but they got him in a fire sale. And
yeah, that happens
right.
a lot or frequently enough to where that's why they make those trades. It's because they've got prospects that are working their way. Last night was the MLB draft, and you won't hear of these guys. Probably you didn't even know these guys to begin with because there's some high school kid in Arkansas or wherever, and you can't follow it. But then he goes, and he's down there in single A, double A, blah, blah, blah. And if he makes it for the Diamondbacks or whomever, great. But he may get traded along the way, and you bring in somebody who can help you right now. So that buyer-seller spiel really is a bigger deal in this sport, and it's coming up in a couple of weeks. And so at that point, then you can evaluate your rosters to see who's going to be able to make a difference for you. Because some of those guys come in, and they make a big difference. J.D. Martinez a few years back for Diamondbacks got him in the postseason. They got him on trade deadline, and he went off. And I think he had one game he had 4 home runs, and everybody knew he ain't coming back. Tommy Pham last year came over from the Mets for the Diamondbacks, and was real important into their World Series run. But you knew he's not coming back. He knew, they knew, everybody knew.
It's the way it works.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, you said something that you said on this show multiple times. You said it to Kyle Whittingham, and he didn't tell you were wrong, but he had a couple additions to the list.
He did.
The Utah-USC 43-42 game. You think that's probably the best game you've ever attended. Kyle says there's 2 more that stand out in his memory.
I was speaking of Utah.
These are Utah football games, right?
Yeah. I mean, not the Fiesta Bowl, Oklahoma, Boise, unbelievable ending, blah, blah, blah. These are games that I was there in a press box on the sidelines. And since I was talking with Kyle for an hour the other day, it was Utah games. Although you could put that USC-Utah game, I think it ranks with any game I've ever been to, any game.
But you were talking to head coach of the Utes about the Utes, and we will get to that next. Kyle's memory. What's he got going? What's he thinking? We'll get to that next. Stay with us.
Folks, I got something to tell you, and I need you to listen. Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at KSLSports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules Credit Union and Beehive Meals.
I love the way you sell that. Beehive Meals. You went to the Ultimate Sports Bash Friday. 2-day extravaganza there in Sandy. Lots of athletes and coaches and lots of chances to buy stuff and play interactive games and all that. And you did a 1-hour Q&A session with Kyle Whittingham.
Oh, crap. I thought you were going to say you did a wonderful job. But it was a 1 hour.
I'm sure you did a wonderful job. You and Kyle have a little chemistry. There have been funny moments in press conferences. People have seen him. You got a little.
Oh, this was adversarial.
Good. Good.
No, it's not. It was not adversarial. I actually told the people, I said, one of the things that you guys need to realize is that, the wins and losses, he's already established himself, right? And he'll have some more wins and have some more big wins. But they kind of blend together. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I said, one of the things that you can look at is the guy has had no controversy. He's represented your university in a way that you can feel good about it. And he does a lot of stuff on the side that people don't know about, and I know about. I literally know about. And I think that's nearly just as important. You're judged by your wins and losses. I get that. But, and I didn't say this, but I sort of referenced it. Urban Meyer. Some baggage.
Won a lot of games, but there's some baggage and some ugliness. And someone who actually likes Urban, not Kyle, said he lost his way. That was their summary. He lost his way.
Yeah.
He was on a good path, and he got distracted by some stuff over here.
Yeah.
And he wandered that, and he got off the path he was on.
And you haven't had that with Utah. And you can feel good about that. And I don't think you're going to get that during the time that Kyle is going to be the coach.
So you told him 43-42 Utah over USC. Might be the best Utah game you have ever attended in person. Arguably, it's just the best game you've attended in person.
I think it was.
But so you're talking to the Utah coach. You're talking about Utah games. But he referenced a couple other games. And before you give them up, we want to let the people guess. Put it out on Twitter, and people are taking shots at it. Now, there were When you said this, initially 2 games came to my mind right away. Then a third, which I personally didn't enjoy that much, but I thought it's the kind of game Kyle might have just loved.
That would be yes.
It might really have appealed to him, even though it didn't appeal to me.
Right.
He would like the lower scoring games. I grew up on Air Coryell. I think 43-42 is awesome.
Brian Sipe?
I was too young for Brian Sipe.
Are we ever too young for Brian Sipe?
Yeah, we are. Just stop. So the game I thought of right away, they stole a game from a really good TCU team in 2008, and they stole a game against Oregon State. And those were the first 2 games that came to my mind right away. And some of our listeners, Utah Man Phoenix, Sugar Bowl, and TCU 2008. So I did think TCU 2008, and TCU had to miss some field goals. It's defensive struggle, and the Utes went down, and Brian Johnson let them down to score at the end, and they win the game. But more dramatic was the Oregon State, which was a really good team that year, and they had to go down and get a 2-point conversion and get the ball back and kick the field goal and win the game. It was you need score, stop, score to win it, and they got it.
You're fitty on that.
Did he? Which one of those 2?
TCU.
Oh, he took the TCU game. Yeah,
and that was very improbable. TCU
was very good.
Tripped over themselves 1,000 times over.
They were very good, and they made horrible mistakes, including a couple of field goals that should have just like a high school kicker could have come out. I mean, I've seen plenty of state semifinal and final games there, and those kickers from that exact spot in that exact stadium would have made those kicks. And the college kicker missed him.
Yes, and I think that walking off, we're in the press box on the west side, so you come down on the field, you tend to stay on the west side, and that's the visitor side. And so I was walking off the field within proximity of Gary Patterson, and the frustration that was on his face, it reminded me of 2 other games locally and he was just bewildered, like he could not believe.
They'd mess that game up.
Yes. Right. He just was stunned that it was a Thursday night, and I can remember coming out of the old South thing that the Garfs have redone now at the end zone, and I saw Gary Anderson, and he just shook his head like I can't believe this. How did we win this game?
Yeah.
Right. I think he was D coordinator then, and I said, hey, if you happen to be by a phone tomorrow,
call us.
Thursday night.
Yeah.
He did. I don't know if you remember that, but he did.
That TC, he was the D coordinator that year because he hugged at the end of the Sugar Bowl and then he was off to Utah State.
Right.
That TCU team went 11-2.
Yeah.
And they played 4 teams that were ranked in the top 10 when they played them. And I think 3 finished in the top 10. Mm-hmm. Certainly 2 of them did. They lost to number 2 Oklahoma, and they lost to the Utes. It was a very good TCU.
Oh, yeah. Gary Patterson had it going on.
Yeah. That was a 13-10 game, so it's Kyle, Whittingham, field position, low scoring. It was a great game. It was his. This is football the way it was meant to be played, man.
Yeah, and the other 2 games that I saw coaches so perplexed on how they lost was Gary at Utah State, BYU, when Riley Nelson came in, and then up in Washington and Seattle. The Utes blew it.
Gave one away.
Yes. Yeah. And I can remember walking. You got to walk all the way down to the lakeside for their locker room. And a coach had a clipboard as we were walking, and you walk up a little ramp, took it and shattered it over his knee. They had that game too. And a receiver got behind a DB, blah, blah, blah. And there's been others. But, yeah, he mentioned that TCU game.
Okay, so TCU's one. Now,
the other one's a little tricky.
So those 2 are 2 I thought of. Now, one that I didn't enjoy as much, again, it was a little lower scoring, and it didn't end up leading to anything. But when they beat Stanford, that was their first really big win in the Pac-12. Stanford was number 5, and they got him with a goal line stand at the end of the game.
I remember it well.
It was a great game. Now, subsequently, the season went awry and they finished 5-7.
Right.
That might have been their last win. That might have gotten them to 5-2. Maybe it's a 4th win. And they lost a bunch of games in a row at the end of the season. It all got away. But that day, the fans hit the field, and it was, I'm sure there were Ute fans going back to their cars saying, this is a great day to be a Ute. They were Stanford was on top of their game. That was a Rose Bowl team for Stanford. That was a great win.
It was.
But that's not what he brought up.
No.
Okay. Now, the other thing, and this occurred to me belatedly when I really started racking my brain and realized we're going to spend a whole segment on it, it could have been another USC game. I mean, they played a bunch of good games with USC at Rice-Eccles, and they played a couple of thrillers in the Coliseum.
They did.
Now, I'd be surprised if he picked a game they lost. But,
yeah.
Right, exactly. But I will say, of the losses that were that really impressed me, the first game at the Coliseum, and there's the whole, they're the Mountain West, can they step up and all that, and they scheduled it as the debut game, right?
Yeah.
And the Utes played terribly. Maybe it was just a, bright lights, stage fright kind of thing. They played terribly early in the game. It looked like they were going to get blown out. And then they scrapped their way, but the defense locks them down. It might have been down 17-0 pretty quickly. And the defense battles their way back, and they get it to 17-14. And then improbably, they actually get down the field when it looked like they wouldn't, and they have a field goal to tie the game and force overtime. And it gets blocked and run back, and USC celebrates in the end zone as 23-14. I know they lost it, but I thought that was it was really a Kyle Whittingham backs against
Jordan
the wall.
Wynn couldn't throw.
Middle of the second quarter. Guys, we're not getting blown out. So suck it up and get back in the game. Let's go. And they did. It was really impressive, even though it was
great
a loss.
games with SC, because then there's another one when they went for 2, and Troy Williams came up a half a foot short.
That was a great game in the Coliseum.
Somebody was at Drez, or somebody was open in the back of the end zone, and I remember getting back to the hotel. We stayed down in the South Bay where I lived, and there's a bunch of Ute fans who happened to be there. Can you believe that, PK? I said, what are you going to do, man? They go for 2, they come up a yard short. I know it sucks, but, man, you played a whale of a game. And you had a big-time drive coming back. Troy Williams was a local guy. Went to Narbonne, one of the high schools that I covered in L.A. City.
So that's a 2017 game.
Yeah.
But they won thrillers here in 2016 and 2014. And then Travis Wilson throw a touchdown pass right at the end of the 2014 game. And that's 6-1 and bowl eligible, and Kyle screaming in the locker room. And it's SC. And you beat him for the first time in the Pac-12 era, and you beat him at the end of the game when you had to make a play.
But he didn't mention those.
That wasn't
the other one that he mentioned is going to be misleading, so you're not thinking of it.
Okay. Let's see if anyone else on Twitter, right? Because they threw it up on Twitter here. Brandon says both Pac-12 championship games. That's not misleading. That's not going to be it. Albus at USU Right the Blue. The pandemonium in 2012 when we beat the Utes in OT at Romney Stadium on ESPN was so fun.
Yeah, he mentioned that one.
Yeah, that was it. Hey, remember that game we lost with that Phantom? I mean, we all went back and looked for the penalty on film, and we just can't find it.
I think that might have been Jordan Wynn's last game.
We have multiple. It was. Yeah, he got hurt in that game, and he was finally done. He got hurt, again in that game, right? Gary Patterson, everybody's all over the Gary Patterson, Rhino, Josh, TCU 2008, TCU's kicker. Yeah, everybody's recalling the TCU game. That really sticks with a lot of people. Greg says Oregon at home with Covey's punt return and the Sugar Bowl Bama beatdown.
He didn't mention either of those.
Yeah, great games.
They were great games.
Not his top 2.
Had a lot of great games.
Curtis, the undefeated season bowl games, so beating Pitt and beating Bama. The Pitt game, that team deserves so much more. There was no way they were going to lose to Pitt. That just felt like beating the 3rd or 4th place team out of the Mountain West. They were going to smoke that team, and they did. And it's not like I'm saying, I knew I got it right. I don't know anybody who didn't think that. Ute fans thought it. Cougar fans thought it. You thought it. You're just going to go down there, and they're going to thrash these guys.
But that's what made it so cool, is it wasn't the game. It was the trip.
Right. It was the week.
Yeah. Everybody was down
you going
there.
to whatever that sports pub and bar thingy, McDuffie's, and all the fans coming through there, and you doing shows in the morning and shows in the afternoon. It was a big old party.
That was a lot of fun. That's what I'm saying.
It was sports at its best.
Right.
Traveling with your team. If you've never done it, you've got to do it. Everybody's listening to this knows. You travel with your team. It's so much fun.
Well, you were traveling with 50,000 other fans, and you saw them. You saw them in Old Town, Scottsdale. You saw them at the Fiesta Bowl parade. You saw them at McDuffie's, right? You saw them on Mill Avenue which is they don't play the Fiesta Bowl there anymore, but that's right down the street where they got a lot of bars and restaurants. So that it wasn't the game.
Yeah.
It was the week.
Yeah.
Because so many, you could drive down there. We had literally people who were listening to you and me in the morning, and then then they came to McDuffie's, which was about a mile.
You talk about it all morning long,
stadium.
and they're like, "Well, I got to get in on that." And
they saw me at 6 o'clock at night. I did the shows with Gordon at night. And
I'm driving all day. I'm hungry.
Right.
PK says it's a great place to eat. Let's go get food.
That was so much fun. It was awesome.
Okay, Calvi, CJ Real Hoops, the premature field rushes on the missed field goal in the BYU rivalry game. That's not what he recalled.
It's not what he recalled.
Storming the field 3 times.
That set the record for more stormations.
So I'm going to guess that it's not a rivalry game because you've already said it's off the beaten path, and rivalry games are on the path.
But it is.
It is. It's a rivalry game.
But it isn't.
Was it his first rivalry game, winning in overtime?
See, that's where it's misleading.
This is a great game. And it was the first time he won a rivalry game as head coach, and there was a lot of pressure at the end of that year.
Right, but you're assigning a designation that he didn't assign himself.
And what's that?
Head coach.
Oh, he was an assistant. Okay. Well, the triple overtime game at Air Force.
No.
Okay. Defense gave up too many drives. You couldn't enjoy that. That was a 43-41 game. Yeah.
He's never going to enjoy that.
He's not. I was in D.C. this one time at Air Force, and the offense kept bailing us out. Although it wasn't as bad as it sounded because the overtime touchdowns. I think it was 27-all or something going OT, 28-all, whatever.
No.
So what was it?
Oh, come on.
Well, it's the end of the segment.
No, it's not.
Assistant coach. A big one is assistant coach.
This is an obvious one. Yak can get it.
I'm trying to think if he was the DC when they beat Arizona in the bowl game.
No. You said rival.
Oh, it was a rivalry game.
So it is a rivalry game.
When Kaneshiro hit the upright. No, they lost.
I was going to say they lost that one. Here's the thing.
He's a defensive coordinator.
3-0. The shutout.
Bingo.
I was going to say
shutout on the ice
down in LaVelle Edwards Stadium in the snow.
So early in the week, I had a chance to ask him something, and he just totally dodged the question. The shutout streak was a big deal, and I just knew he wanted that thing. And it was set up. Their D was great. BYU's offense was struggling, and victory would never be enough for Kyle. He needed the shutout. And I brought it up with one of the players, and they're like, yeah, he wrote it on the board. I didn't know anything about it. And then he looks at me and goes, I'm not old enough to know about it.
He brought that up, and he brought up they hadn't scored. They scored in so many blah, 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 blah games.
Yeah.
And I think it was 1975, the last time they had been shut out. The Devils got them in Tempe.
Yeah, it was Frank Kush and the Devils.
But
undefeated Devils.
Yes.
And the undefeated.
I didn't want to bring that up.
Right.
Because it wasn't.
It wasn't your thing, yeah.
Yeah, it was his thing.
Right.
But he brought up that game as a defense coordinator. And, he's got a complicated relationship with his alma mater.
Yeah.
I think he said the rivalry game. Like somebody asked him about how do you meet his wife, and she lived 4 or 5 doors down, and he says that I grew up in the LA area, and my dad got a job up here.
And he doesn't say BYU. His goal is to go through life without saying that.
At 14, and he was introverted, and so then, it took a few I don't know, years or so, but she came over to that, knocked on the door or something, and then the rest is history. And then they celebrated their 40th anniversary, I think, last year or the year before. But he did bring up that game, and he says, I'm a defensive coordinator. And
3-0's beautiful.
Oh yeah.
So he's got a 3-0
sat up
game.
straight and started smiling, and
he's got a 3-0 game and a 13-10 game.
Yep.
That is so Kyle.
Yeah, and so I go to the SC game, which was high scoring, and they score, and you knew that the Utes were going to score and go for 2.
Right.
That's what he does. He's done that repeatedly. And I thought, and they're also going to get the 2-point conversion.
Right.
Because SC can't
stop
guard their shadows.
And there's no chance you want to let SC's quarterback on the field to work his magic in overtime.
Which he did right at the end.
He
but
had 30 seconds, but there just wasn't enough time.
No, there was not.
There's you're going to get 3 or 4 plays here.
Right, and they had no time.
And you got to go the length of the field.
Yeah. So that was
right.
Those
but
are
you
the
didn't
two
want
games.
to give him overtime. That would have been would have been playing with fire at that point. You had to go for 2.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
you knew
Kyle was going to, but really, 99% of coaches would have gone for 2.
Oh, against a defense that has shown no signs of resistance whatsoever?
Yeah.
100%.
And there's one coach who wouldn't have, and he would have been screwing it up.
Yeah. And the excitement and the noise of the stadium was off the charts, man.
Yeah.
And then they got that new thing I told you in the end zone, and people can come in, and there's a glass window like we're in the zoo, and they can see the press conference, and they can pipe it in. I had people were asking to take pictures with me. They just, let's see, he's somebody. Let's take a picture with him.
Did he even have a stroller and a baby?
No, but there were kids. And the mood of the stadium was the only time I could reference it back is when they beat BYU to virtually guarantee the BCS. But this one was much better because that one was a formality. This one, you didn't know how it was going to end until it ended. And that's really cool.
We do have people throwing out the 2003 Oregon game, which
2003?
Yes. So he was defensive coordinator. It was a 17-13 game, and Brandon Warfield, I think, had a late touchdown in that game. It was a good game. So it's Urban's first year, and they were 3-1 going into that game. So are they really good? You know, they played A&M tough and lost.
But the Ducks weren't the Ducks then.
They weren't the Ducks they would become. No. They were not the Ducks. They hadn't had that kind of 2007 to 2010 run.
Right.
They'd been good.
Chip Kelly wasn't the coach.
They'd been 9 or 10 wins good. And they'd been to Rose Bowls.
You said 2007 to 2000.
Wasn't that when Chip Kelly went crazy in the late 2000s?
Yeah.
I think that was when was their BCS title game?
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
That's where you come in, not me.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right.
All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. It's a trip down memory lane with Kyle Whittingham. Coming up next, everything you missed in this show, the Utes, the Cougars, and the Jazz. Next, stay with us.
Accessing. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
Maybe Indiana's a place where you can have metal-piercing bullets. Can't imagine those are legal anywhere. Maybe they are. Metal-piercing bullets?
Jeez.
What are you facing? What's the guy with a metal suit?
The Tin Man?
No. The guy from Weird Science plays him. Something Junior. He wears a metal suit. And like I was going to say...
RoboCop?
No. It's the guy that wears metal and flies around.
The Rocket Man. Rocketeer, sorry.
We've given you so many guys with metal suits.
You're not close.
I'm sorry. Why are you mad at us?
How would you get it?
Okay. But I
man in metal suit.
Iron Man. How did you guys not get Iron Man?
All the Iron Man I could think of.
Come up with 30 things with guys dressed in metal. 30.
Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Yuck, you ready to give away another golfer?
I am.
Who have you given away this morning? We've just started. Only 2 golfers gone.
We gave away Sahith Theegala as well as the Scottish Open winner Robert McIntyre.
All right, it's you in a golf major giveaway. Be caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. You'll be assigned a golfer in this week's Open Championship at Royal Troon. If your golfer wins, you will win FootJoy rain gear in honor of the Open from our friends at You Win a Golf, serving Utah golfers since 1971. Starting now to get you up to speed. You missed a bunch of stuff in this show. You're coming in a little late. The 9 a.m. Slacker Radio headlines are brought to you by Tim Dahle Mazda Southtown. Find your new Mazda at the south end of the valley at Tim Dahle Mazda Southtown. That's Tim Dahle Mazda Southtown in Sandy. Utes, Cougars, Jazz. We've talked it all this morning. The Utes, you met Dorian Singer for the first time. Your impression of the wide receiver transferred from Minnesota to Arizona for high school ball and COVID. Walked on at the University of Arizona, blew up, put up some awesome numbers that you fans would love to see replicated. But he went to USC and didn't put up numbers. So now he's at Utah.
Right. He's got that year that he spent, multiple years in Arizona, 1 year in high school in the Phoenix area. And I said, then he came from Minnesota. And I said, so you traded the land of 1,000 lakes for Lake Pleasant, a little local geography. And he laughed. There's like one little lake over there on that side of town. And but I was impressed with him in his knowing that I got something to prove. It reminded me of Slovis.
So don't deny that last year was a disappointment. Point out, it was what it was, and I'm going to improve on it.
Yeah, these guys coming in, and I'm going to try to make my mark for the NFL scouts this year. And this is his year, not to say if he has a bad year he can't make the NFL if he has an average year, but you want to put your best foot forward now because you're on the clock to be scouted, right? And Utah's
they're definitely looking at
going to
him.
be a ton of scouts at Utah games because they got 15 guys that they scout every year at least, if not more. So he knows that, and I believe he understands what the purpose is, what the point is about what he's looking for.
For BYU, we had Jay Drew on to talk about Big 12 Media Days, the quarterback battle, and he thinks it's open. 4 guys deep sounds good, but it isn't realistic. But it's not locked up by any means. And I guess the only thing to read into it is Kalani has said, it's open. How open is it? Coaches say that sometimes just to keep the pressure on. But given the fact that everybody on this team at the quarterback spot either hasn't done it or hasn't done it in a while, I get why the coaches wouldn't be fully committed. You can take the lead in August, but you can't win it until you're playing games.
There is a guy who's a pass catcher for BYU, and he's been telling people...
A pass catcher.
Yeah.
Opening it up. So wide receiver. But wait a minute, pass catcher could be a tight end, could be a running back.
But that's my attempt to conceal him.
I get it. I get where you're going.
He has told people that, in his opinion, Bourget throws the best ball.
Which is a big part of the equation, but not the only part of the equation.
If you're a pass catcher, it is.
Sure. But coaches are looking at eliminating turnovers. So you throw a great ball, but if you make bad reads and you don't know the offense and you hold the ball too long and you deliver it, you throw it great, but you deliver it a half a beat late.
Yeah, I got it.
That's when someone flashes in front and it's a pick six going the other way.
Yeah, and you're just dealing in practice or summer workouts.
And Kalani and A-Rod and Jay Hill all worked for Kyle Whittingham. So we know what they think of turnovers. And we know turnovers cost him at least a couple games last year.
And they all worked for Freddie Whittingham.
Right. And we know what he thought of turnovers. And we know turnovers bit them.
Or Fred Whittingham, not Freddie.
Fred, right. Bit them. So while I appreciate that, and I'm sure it's valued, they got to quit turning the ball over. And that's not just a quarterback thing, but obviously the quarterback's a big part of it.
Yeah, no question.
And there were fumbles in the Oklahoma game that hurt him.
I would be surprised if Retzlaff is not the starter, but I don't know how long he'll hold on to that job.
You can't really lock it down until you start winning games.
Yeah.
And Jay saying that Bohannon admitted at the end of spring he really couldn't do what he needed to do, and now he can.
Knew he couldn't do.
The shoulder, the shoulder didn't have to be great in the spring. Now, is it great in August? Is it great in September? And can he make all the throws?
They feel like he'll be back at least in the vicinity of being able to have a fair shot. But they just feel like Retzlaff has been there longer, has a little bit of a head start. But Bohannon will play. He's not going to just stand there.
That's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah.
It could be performance, it could be injury. On injury alone, there's so many backups playing.
Right.
And there's a chance it's on performance.
He has a skill set that they want to utilize. And the kid's got some history.
That's what I said. They either haven't done it or they haven't done it in a while.
Yeah.
He hasn't done it in a while, but he has won the Big 12.
So you can't disregard him. Nor do you think that, what he did at Baylor is a surefire sign that he's going to do it here.
Time will tell. It's hard to know.
Well, yeah, that's what's fun about sports, man. We don't necessarily know the answer to so many things. We don't know how BYU's season's going to be.
When you know it, it's boring.
Yeah, we know Utah's going to be good, but how good are they going to be?
We were just talking in the last segment about Kyle Whittingham and the best wins, and you go back to the Mountain West era, we knew that BYU, Utah, and TCU were going to win every week in conference play unless they were playing each other.
Yeah.
And that was boring.
Three teams.
That was boring. It's way better to have doubt. It's way better to make a prediction on the air and be wrong and have people make fun of you.
That's what's so fun.
Entertainment.
Yeah. And then Utah, they'll have a few games that will be right off the bat. Oklahoma State and Arizona. I'll be at both those games, and I'm really looking forward to both those games. Those will tell us how good this team is. when I say good, I'm talking about, are they playoff contending? They're going to be good. I'm not talking about that. I mean, Kyle said the other day, this is what he said at the thing that we did, that in their Fiesta Bowl season, he said the last game, the 22 starters were the same as the first game. And so they had everything break their way health-wise. Yeah. And then he said the Sugar Bowl, maybe 2. So they had, whereas last year, he said at one point they counted 15 starters out. And that's shocking. The law of numbers ought to dictate that you don't have that this year.
Right.
And plus, they've been a P5 now 4 team for so many years that they do have depth, and that's where BYU got caught short. And I forget who I was talking to, is that for so many years they were able to mask the lack of depth, the lack of ready depth, meaning that you got a player who just got home from a mission, and he's going to be a player in 2 years. But if we got to throw him in there now, we're in trouble.
Well, one of the advantages of the front-loaded independent schedule is you're healthy at the start of the year, and that's when you play your biggest games. And when your team gets beaten down late in the year, well, you always had a bye week in November. They had their game against the championship subdivision money game, Big Sky opponent, was in November, and you're gonna be off and get healthy. You're gonna be able to win with second-string guys.
Yeah,
the schedule was built for it.
And they even went back. I can't remember who told me this, but he's just talking about how they were able to overcome lack of depth because they didn't need to tap into it, and now they know that they need to tap into it, and it's so crucial, and that's where they have to build it up to get the second and third team guys ready. It's hard to do when guys are coming off missions and their bodies aren't ready to be in that situation, and they know that, and they've got to compensate for that for other ways. And we'll see. I think they've improved, but to the level remains to be seen. Certainly at quarterback, I mean, the lack of depth the last 3 years has been atrocious.
We talked with Steve Cleveland about BYU basketball, blending all these guys together, and then you asked Jay Drew how he felt about covering his first Final Four.
Why not?
He pointed out the hype is massive.
It really is.
And they do have a core of returning guys, but obviously some of the hype is for young guys, and how much to win with one-and-dones and young guys is for the young guys.
Is when you hear lottery picks, first-round draft choices, they could potentially have 2 first-round draft choices last year.
They did add a couple of transfers who come in as veterans who can play and give them some stability. I mean, Kid is not going to be the star, but he can play.
And a kid from Maryland is viewed as a defensive expert, and you need those types of guys. And then we'll see what Dawson Baker did he didn't do anything last year. He didn't get, I think he had 1 or 2 games, but he's got a nice physical stature about him, and you need guys. That's the thing about BYU's the thing that makes me a little concerned is you look at the pattern of their success. They had a stud up at the top, but then they had some really, really solid role players that had been around the block and knew what it took. Jackson Emery, super solid role player, and knew his role, had been in the program. When they were ready to go, he was ready to go. And it worked. And Noah Hartzog here, thinking back of the last Jimmer run. These guys had been in the programs for a good long time. And you had a couple other guys, Abuo, and those guys, they knew their role, and they just wanted to win at that point. And I wonder, how much of these guys that had been bigger players in the prior spots, are they willing to accept a role for the sake of winning? I mean, Pablo's been talking about that the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
You can hear it. and
it's a great question in sports, in a team game.
Right.
And I just wonder also, you never know this with soccer with guys coming in, how much do you want to win and sacrifice the other people? How much does it really matter? And how much are you furthering your own career? Now, some guys grasp, like, if I want to go play somewhere else, right, and make more money. But the people who are scouting me want to see that I'm a winner. Right. So I need to be all in on winning because it's not just my individual skill. It's them having that sense like the guy's a winner.
How do I contribute to winning?
Right. And now are people, all these people coming in from wherever they're coming from, are they just passing through? Because for a long time, for people who are all in on BYU, having those letters BYU on your jersey, whatever the sport, it really matters. Because
a lifelong dream.
Right. They grew up rooting for BYU. Mom and dad may have met at BYU.
The fact that I couldn't play baseball at BYU broke my heart.
Stop. See, now you're not making the point. Well, maybe in a weird way you are.
They would have offered me. I would have taken it. Anybody would have offered me.
I'm in.
Timbuktu State, I would have been crying.
TSU. I love TSU. They're going to have a team next year.
Yeah.
And I do wonder how much these guys are just coming in. It's an exercise in getting better, and they have these scrimmages, and does the winning really matter? You grow up on the other coast or the other side of the world.
Yeah.
How bought in are you going to be? Maybe you are. Maybe you come in and you bond with the guys, and the crowd gets you going, and winning's better than losing, so let's get it.
Pablo runs out there and says it 2 times in a row. I may be stupid, but I can catch on.
There you go. DJ and PK, when we come back, your feedback next. Stay with us.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, The Zone. Memories.
What do you got?
You told Kyle Whittingham. Utah 43, USC 42 might be the best game you've ever attended. Kyle says there are 2 other games that stand out in his memory. We put it up. What do you think they are? Now, subsequently, we've come clean. It's Utah 3-0 over BYU in 2003 when he's defensive coordinator, and Utah 13-10 over TCU in 2008.
Yes.
Other guesses, though. Interesting. Mr. Bogeyman says the Oregon beat down at Autzen Stadium.
That was awesome. But that was an offensive explosion. He's a defensive guy. Britton Covey mentioned that game. That was really sweet. That was the game that I'm at practice and walking off the field after practice, and coach says to me, "Oh, we got this." And I chuckled. And he stopped, and he looked at me, and I can read people. I think it's one of my, if I have any skills, that's it. And he looked at me, and he turned, and he says, "No, we got this."
All righty, then.
Remember I came in?
I do remember you saying that.
Yeah.
And I have a little policy so that I don't mess stuff up because I'm totally capable of messing stuff up. When you have something and you don't say who it is, I tend not to ask you who told you. And if you want to tell me, you do. And if you don't, then you don't. And I always thought I could guess who it was. Because there are people who have, certain level of confidence.
Yeah.
But we'll just leave it there so I don't mess it up because they want to stay quiet.
And people trust me.
Yeah.
And I stopped in my tracks, too. I thought, whoa, that's serious.
And then 62-20.
Yes.
And it was a big deal because Oregon hadn't gone through so many coaching changes at that point.
Right.
Now they have, and it's cost them a little bit. I mean, they're still good.
They've come out the other end of it.
Right.
But it did
But
cost
in that
them.
era, that was the only win they had in 8 or 9 years in 6 games because they didn't play every year. They didn't beat them in that era. And then when they do beat them, they don't get them at home. They get them at Autzen. And it isn't close. They play him off the field. Just complete domination. So I get why that would be recalled, because if you're a Ute fan, you've had a lot of frustration, and then you finally get them, and you get them like that.
Oh, you run them off the field in their place.
Yeah, in Eugene.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I was at the BYU-Michigan game. I think it was BYU-Michigan. So I was not covering that game. I was covering the BYU game.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the time differences, I was at the airport, so I had gotten up. I was at the Detroit airport texting Utah people as they were coming home. They hadn't even gotten to bed yet.
Because it takes forever. Yeah. You got to finish up at the stadium. You got to bus to the airport.
Yeah.
I wonder if they flew out of Eugene. I assume they flew out of Eugene with a charter.
Yeah, they do.
And then, but you always hear about the 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. arrival times.
Right.
Which then you have the benefit of 3 hours, so it's 6, 7, or 8.
Yeah.
They're 3, 4, or 5.
Right. Yeah. That was so funny because I had already gone to bed, and they hadn't gone to bed yet. They hadn't even been home yet because I wanted to get their reaction, and I wasn't there to be able to talk to them. So I'm literally sitting at the airport with my phone going back and forth, and that was fun.
As far as the 3-0 game, Josh points out the 3-0 BYU game was huge for Kyle. It was the first game after his dad died. His father had passed away suddenly. It was the first rivalry game. His father had passed away in late October. Mm-hmm. So a month later, this 3-0 game happens. And as Josh says, a shutout was a perfect tribute to Fred.
Okay, yeah, I can buy that.
Yeah. Won the conference title, broke the BYU string of scoring in games, and that was the first conference title for Utah in 45 years. That was a big, big deal.
And I can honestly say, sitting in the press box, I was bored stiff.
You're frozen. At least you're in the press box.
But I wanted offense.
I know.
And I didn't get any offense.
Well, years later, he delivered 43-42. So
I know, but I'm an offensive guy.
As are most football fans.
I want to see offense.
Yeah.
I have nothing in common with Whittingham.
Most people don't want to see that 3rd and 4, that big tackle that brings up 4th and 2 and makes them punt. Kyle's like, yeah, and you're like, 2-yard run. So what?
Right.
Now we got to punt.
Oh, man, he still loves that play that Dustin Gabriel got knocked into tomorrow by Quinton Ganther. That's how Ganther's on the coaching staff, that one play.
There it is. All right, we're out of time. Jacob Benner up next right here on The Zone.